Hello and welcome to the Which Bookie Cheltenham Festival 2026 live preview. So things could go wrong, couldn't they? We're just going to take a couple of seconds before we start just to make sure that the live broadcast is working and that we can share it out so people can see what's going on. So Will, while we're doing that, how are you? We've got final declarations for Cheltenham. It is around the corner. I'm so excited about this year's festival. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's feels like a long time waiting, doesn't it? Finally, the talking is all going to be over. Saying that at the start of a live preview, where I'm going to do lots of talking, and hopefully lots of people will listen, take the opposite view. Perhaps we'll see. But yeah, the real stars of the show are going to soon take centre stage, aren't they? And the horses themselves can do the talking, and that's much better. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been exciting as well because you get to see the coverage of the horses walking the track and doing a bit of work, don't you? And you get to see the final declaration for the first day. You can start putting the pieces of the puzzle together for the rest of the week. A few bits of speculation thrown about as well. I mean, at the moment, there's talk that maybe a couple of horses that are due to run Wednesday weren't seen at the gallops this morning, which means they might not be about. So it's affected markets. How much at this stage do you pay attention to that because you want to get ahead of the market, but also how much do you read into those things thinking they've all got to be taken with a pinch of salt, I guess?
I think you can. I mean, you can never be fully in the know, can you? Yeah, you might take one snippet of information. There might be someone else who's got something completely contradictory, who you just don't manage to hear about. I did hear about that with regards to some of the Wednesday horses, Final Demand being probably the most high-profile one, I think. And it might be linked slightly to some kind of delay to the ferry crossing, by all accounts, and I think that's a genuine thing. I've not just plucked that out of the ether as such. So whether look, the trainers and horse transporters these days, they can work miracles at short notice. They'd need to. I don't know the full story, but I guess stay tuned to the various social media channels and that, because as soon as it happens, we'll probably know 30 seconds before it.
Absolutely. Well, we think we can crack on with it, but I believe that we're live, so we'll crack on with it as though we are. I've shared a link so people can check that out on Twitter that have already seen it, but obviously anyone that's hearing me say that will have already checked the link on Twitter. It will be available after, so if you want to dip out of this, then it will be recorded and posted up on the channel. But as for now, Will, let's crack on. We've obviously done a preview for all 4 days. A few things have changed since then and now. Notably on the first day, Ultima confirmed for a champion hurdle, so we'll talk about that as we get to it. But the Supreme's a bit of a mix-up as well because Mighty Park is coming to this race. It's a really, really good-looking Supreme for all that. I say only 12 runners in there. There's 12 runners, but I would say that there's a good half a dozen that have got proper chances. Thoughts on it as it stands now for the Supreme? Because the market's taken a little bit of a change with the fact that Mighty Park is here. But in terms of pecking order and preference for who the horses would be, where would your money be siding at this stage now we know who's going?
Yeah, it's going to be a fairly uninspiring start to the preview, I'm afraid, because I don't really have strong opinions on the Supreme or Arkle, which is devastating in its own right, because all you want is to get off to a nice start with some strong, valid opinions on the Supreme and the Arkle. But I must admit, I've been going around in circles with both races, really. I think both have got the right favourites or the right two vying for favouritism. And then I think even those at the kind of bigger prices, they're scaled just about right with each other. So, look, I think the one who has the least areas that you could crab is Old Park Star in the Supreme. I think if you pushed me for a selection, if it was just in a Naps table or something like that, I'd be going Old Park Star because he's got quality, he's got speed, he's got stamina, he's looked pretty uncomplicated, he jumps well, and that for me is a tick in every box really. He's trained by a master of trainers in terms of Supreme winners, so. There are one or two areas that you could pick holes in some of the others, I think, for all that they're potentially pretty talented. I think Old Park Star probably is the best of them and will certainly prove to be the best of them further down the line, I think.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's nice when the markets settle like this because you'll see the liabilities with certain firms because Corals and Ladbrokes and Bet365 have gone 11-4 Old Park Star. So I don't think they took a pounding in the anti-post markets. Flutter, your Betfair, Sky Bets and Paddy Power, they're 2-1 Old Park Star. So at this stage, there's a good opportunity if you've got an opinion on any of the horses towards the front to maybe sniff a bit of value as far as I'm concerned because the prices will change a bit, but it looks a really good race. I mean, I'd echo the same as you. Wouldn't have the strongest of opinions. I would have been more strong on Old Park Star if Mighty Park wasn't here. And it's hard as well because Nicky Henderson's bullish enough about Old Park Star, but everyone's saying they didn't think he was that good a horse to begin with. Then you've got the polar opposite with Mighty Park where they're saying we thought he'd win a champion bump. We've always known he's good. And now they're talking him up. And it's almost the case if you look, one's got it in the book And to be fair, Mighty Park's performance was really good, wasn't it? But it's
Yeah.
hard to make that tangible with only being one effort, and he's not done it here. When they're almost vying for joint favouritism, it's a bit of a mad one. But yeah, full respect for Talk the Talk, even though I've got nothing on him at this stage. El Kairos was like a bit of a springer through the season, but things haven't gone to plan. Maybe he's got the engine for it. I think it is. We're going to find out who the winner is. There'll be loads of opinions, but I would be the same as you, Will. I would say that Old Park Star would still be my selection for the race. Like I say, not as bullish as I probably would have been if Mighty Park wasn't here, but still, can't fear one horse, can you?
No.
Which takes us nicely onto the Arkle, because there's not just one horse to fear here. But if you are a fan of Lulamba or you are a fan of Copet de Board, you probably do think you've only got one horse to fear. We've got 6-4 for Copet de Board now. They've switched since we did the previews because Copet de Board was second favourite. You mentioned that. Once he gets confirmed, probably there might be some support behind him. Lulamba's top price 15-8, which is probably looking fair in the context of this, as I've pitched it as maybe a two-horse race. Cargase is in at 9-2. It's 12-1 and bigger the rest of them, Will. So I know you've mentioned there that it's a bit uninspiring to start with not a strong opinion in either of the two races. But I guess the simple question for most people in there is, do you think it's as simple as Copet de Board or Lulamba wins this? Or do you think, considering there's only 7 and no one's gone 3 places yet, it's worth trying to find something to take them on with? Or do you think maybe even better, it's better to maybe sit the race out if you haven't already got a position?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one. It really is. I'm desperate to back Lulamba at that price. I really am. But the more I look at the race and I think, well, the two other horses that will define the race are Copet de Board and Cargase. Now, both of those two are obviously trained by the same man. They're both speedy types who can be keen enough. And, you know, they're not going to take each other on and set things up and set a really end-to-end breakneck gallop, because that's just going to suit Lulamba. I mean, Lulamba he'll do very, very similar to what the likes of Altior and horses like that did, in that he might just hit something of a flat spot or look as if he might just not be completely on an even keel at about the halfway stage, but he is going to be strong through the line without a shadow of a doubt. And if Copet de Board and Cargase have done too much in the first half of the race, then he's going to ultimately pick them up, I think. Copet de Board he's a very, very good horse, very, very fast. High quality. We saw that in the Supreme. Is he just going to do a little bit too much too soon, given his keen going tendencies? That would be my worry for him. But what's stopping me from backing Lulamba is that you could easily see those two, Cargase and Copet de Board, getting a bit of a solo on the front, not being pushed too quick, not being forced to go too fast. And that just might suit them. So a bit of a tactical minefield. If it was if I could guarantee an end-to-end gallop, Lulamba hands down at the prices, but perhaps that's why they're priced up the way they are.
Yeah, it's so hard, isn't it? And especially with we all know for every festival, everyone gets excited about the Willie Mullins horses, don't they? And then there's a bit of extra hype, I think, when it comes to people looking at multiples and all playing those types of things in there. Because not saying this would necessarily be the best way of playing it, but for an interest in the first race, where it probably, for me, I guess if you were to run the race 10 times, I would expect that Mighty Park and Old Park Star would be the ones that would win it more often than not if you were to team them two up. In the Arkle, I think Copet de Board and Lulamba, if you teamed them up, they'd win sort of 8 of the 10 of these. So there could be a case that you could, for a novelty, bet back Old Park Star and Lulamba in a double, and you could back Mighty Park and Copet de Board in a double, and then you just sit after the Supreme and say, well, now I've worked out which horse I'm sat on the Arkle. But that's obviously not the best way to be necessarily playing it. I like Copet de Board, I like Lulamba. I just think at the prices they are, I wouldn't have a strong enough opinion either way to probably be getting stuck in. That said, I still need to do a bit more work on the race, and I do really like Copet de Board. But you are right, like tactically, it's going to be a tricky one to know it's going to pan out, and it might not work out for him just because he's a law unto himself. But then there was concerns about that in the Supreme, and it just never came to fruition. So I'm still a little bit on the fence with him. There are obviously the 28 races across the day, and as much as, like you say, we want to get in and get these winners early, he would feel like a horse that I've left behind if he won the Arkle, and I didn't suggest that he's the one to bet. The way that Lulamba's reaching the point of being like a 15-8, it feels like he's the right bet, but he does also feel to me a little bit like he could be a value loser. Even saying that out loud, they will, with what he did in that Game Spirit last time. If he dots up in this and ends up being a champion chaser of the future, you could look back and say, how was he ever sent off 15-8 against a horse that's had one run, Cargase, that was beaten at the DRF last time, and then a load of horses that would be nowhere near him. So it's a tricky race from a punting perspective. Hopefully for some of the viewers, though, rather than us giving you some confirmation of who to put your bets on, it might give you some comfort that if your head's a bit scrambled on the race, it is for me and Will too. Right, Will, a race that can't possibly scramble your head is the Juvenile handicap, which is a bit of a tricky one because everything bar one horse got confirmed as well. So good to see, but there was loads of entries. makes an argument maybe they should make this 2 divisions and get rid of the mare's hurdle. But we'll talk about that at a later stage. It's really compressed this year as well in terms of the weights in there. We still need to work out what happens. We've got the 2 reserves sat there. Munsef, probably the most interesting of the reserves that could get in, but Willie declared all 3 at the end, didn't he? Which meant it didn't get in, but it doesn't work out that like Willie wasn't waiting for it. It just is what it is. But we've got Saratoga head of the market 6-1. Winston Jr.'s 13-2 with Jack Kennedy booked. That's making him more attractive to me than he might have been before. Manlanga 7-1. He was a little bit weak on the machine this week. Munsef's in there at 8-1, but he might come out, mightn't he? And then Amnes, that was mentioned when we did our preview. A few people talk about him saying that if we like Minella Study, we should really like Amez for this race. Look, well, it's a hard race as far as I'm concerned. It is a race, though, for me. I think you would probably come into your own in this, hopefully, in the fact that there's loads of firms offering 6 places up for grabs.
Yeah.
There's some big prices, even if you were to back the first 3 in the betting. They're all 6-1. You'd get your like the equivalent of like money back in terms of plays. All 3 of them could place, and this could be the start of. Especially for Tuesday, we've got 3 handicaps, some interesting multiples like your block bets, things like that as well. So my view on this is I've got a lot of horses I could give a chance to, but nothing that I'd be have any conviction to suggest to anyone to bet at this stage, I don't think. Yourself, though, Will, is there anything, or do you reckon there's a couple or a few you might say these look like good each-way bets to be sticking in some of those, like I say, cross doubles?
Yeah, there's one definitely that I've backed and have recommended on the website as well already for day one, which is Winston Jr. Because I think he's also been waiting to back, really, and he was entered in the Triumph Hurdle, and then he was a little bit weak on the exchanges for this race as well. So there were just, a little bit of to-ing and froing with it. But obviously, the way he has been campaigned over hurdles has been hugely progressive. I mean, his debut was a little bit underwhelming, but then when he went to Cheltenham behind Minella Study, he was really eye-catching in second, wasn't he? Showed that he handles Cheltenham, so there's a tick in that box. Showed that he'd improved on performance and hurdling from his first run. And then he went to Ascot and I think Connections have probably just tried to look under every stone, really, and make sure everything is covered. And they'd obviously held him up in his first 2 starts, or certainly at Cheltenham, and got him to try and settle in amongst runners. And then at Ascot, they thought, well, let's see what this horse can do, going out from the front. And he was so good, wasn't he? I mean, admittedly, not much took him on. But it might also have been a case that even if they did want to, they wouldn't have been able to. He set a strong tempo, clocked a good time. He hurdled pretty fluently. The last, he bungled a little bit. But he probably lost concentration by that stage. He was very, very good. Now, he obviously got a bit of a weight rise for that, but, a pound or 2 here or there. And as you mentioned it's so compressed, this race. Whether you're on 126 or 131 or 133, it doesn't matter one little bit. When you've got 24 horses, scrimmaging for room, you can quite quickly lose any advantage you might have thought you had by having £2 less, after a furlong if you get hampered in the run. So, look, I just think he's a really, really progressive type. Love his profile as a flat horse as well. Had a good amount of speed and stamina. And Connections have obviously notified themselves, or kind of realised early, that Harry Cobden wouldn't have been available because he had been picked up by Paul Nicholls. And they must have gone to Jack Kennedy early here, because for him to not ride for Gordon Elliott or Jigginstown, who are both represented in the race, this has been something that has been in the pan for a while, I would have thought. Given how loyal Jack is to those 2 particular operations. So, yeah, the fact they've gone to Jack Kennedy in substitution for Harry Cobden just shows to me that, they mean some serious business here. I understand Saratoga and Manlaga being likely types and owned by JP McManus, but I thought Winston Jr. should be favourite on what he's done.
Yeah, and he was at one stage as well, wasn't he? So I think he's one of those that the market's going to settle itself out in the between now and Tuesday. It's crazy. I love 40-hour decks, but you look at it now and thinking it's Cheltenham tomorrow, and you have to think, oh no, wait, we've got another day for it. So there's going to be time to get in some of these horses. There's going to be things that change. But yeah, Winston Jr., I haven't got a penny on him as it stands, but he is already loaded on a few potential bets for me in those each-way doubles, because I need to get a bit on with him. I can't really see him out the frame, and I thought the same as you with the booking of Jack Kennedy. It's very notable. And sometimes with some of those horses, so diverting back to the Supreme, Ben Jones riding Sober Glory is still fine, and he's obviously a top jockey. He's phenomenal. The fact that Harry Cobden, in a Paddy Power interview, said that he would have liked to ride him, but Ben Jones was on him, it didn't really seem to me like maybe he put up a bit of a fight. He didn't say, I was desperate to ride him, but they wouldn't let me, or that stuff. And maybe he wouldn't say those things. But you see sometimes a jockey booking can be like an extra positive, can't it? And I agree with you. I think that it is for Jack Kennedy on Winston Jr. And I think as well the market will reflect that at some point too. So That's good, Will. Happy days. And that'll get us through the play spot. We can go one leg banker in the Fred Winter like we should do every year. The Ultima, that used to be the first handicap, and this is a race that I proper love as well. I've not got as many darts in this as I had, or I have done in the past. Sometimes I've got 7 or 8 horses that I've liked through the season that I've taken a swing at and that still end up running at the end, and you're not sure if they've still got a chance. But typically it has been a race, hasn't it, where it's been findable, the winner of the Ultima, and then the market's also helped quite a bit as well. As it stands at the moment, Jaguar's long-standing favourite for this one. He's 4-1 top price, bottom price 130. Iroko, he wasn't necessarily going to come here, but is coming here and is a very good horse. 6-1 top price, bottom price 5-1 or 9-2 in fact. Town's going for a bit of money. He's 10-1. So is Quebecois. Hands down, we talked about a bit last time too. Him and Highland are both 11-1. Then it's 14s and bigger the rest. For me on this one, Will, the horse that I thought was like mega interesting, you'd already mentioned when we did our previous stuff, was Knight of Allen sneaking in down the bottom, because wasn't sure he was going to get in. 20-1 about him, or even 22-1 with some other firms. I mean, Sky Bet are going 7 places in this race. We've only got 22 runners. I think a horse like Knight of Allen, he's got to win on good ground as well, hasn't he? I feel like he's a similar-ish type to Town, and similar enough in the fact that I think he'll be very well supported. So regardless, I think, of whether you think he'll win or not to anybody out there, I would say that Knight of Allen's not going to go off at 20-1. So if you want to have a little bit on him and then decide if you want to cash out or do something later, I reckon that's probably the way that I'd suggest it at the moment. But of all those ones I've mentioned near the front, like I really think Town could win this one, but I think I could make a reasonable case for quite a few in here. So like the Fred Winter, needs to do a bit more work to pin my colours to a certain mast in here, but I'm hoping, Will, you can give the viewers the answer.
Well, Knight of Allen's one of them. Yeah, one of the 2 that I've backed and recommended. I love his profile for this type of race. He's he's not a novice as such, but he's really lightly raced. And they've done well to keep his handicap mark in and around the mid to high 120s, actually, given some of the races he's been running in and his performance levels. He's had a sighter around Cheltenham this year behind Miami Magic, when never really put into the race. He stepped up to nearly 3 miles at Newbury on heavy ground last time out, which wouldn't have suited him really. He's performed on soft ground, but I do think he's quite a nice mover. So I think, just genuine good to soft is probably fine for him. And he's got he's got so much improvement left to find. I'd be amazed if he's not, a really nice progressive staying handicap chaser as we get into the spring. So obviously Jane Williams, in previous sort of training partnerships with Nick Williams, they've got history in this race, haven't they, with similar types. So I think they've got an entry with him in the novices handicap chase as well. So they could have gone there, but once they got into this, they jocked him up and they were keen to declare him. So he's one, and the other one is Anthony Honeyball's Leave of Absence, who I've gradually warmed to. The more I watch the races back, the more the replays I watch back from him, because initially I just wondered whether he'd got things a bit softly on that novice chase win at Cheltenham back in October when he beat Pied Piper. And he sort of did to some degree, but actually he was taken on a little bit more on the front than I gave him credit for at the time. He then went back to Cheltenham behind Wade Out, and he was. I mean, you can throw the run out. I don't think the ground helped him at all. You just forgive him that run. And then it was the Ascot Handicap Chase run in the Silver Cup just before Christmas that was a belting run, because he was the only one up on the front end who'd set a strong tempo, who hang around in the finish of that race. You got the likes of Johnny Hu and Highland, who were fast finishing, but they were suited to being held up off that strong tempo that day. And then he had a Potter round at Newbury in the Denman Chase, fared with credit, picked up some prize money. Anthony Honeyball, love him in staying handicap chases. I think this has probably been a real plan of his to get this horse here for this. He's lightly raced again, unexposed over fences. He's a little bit more experienced than some. So I just think he's got a really, really nice profile for it. Prominent racer as well, which will help. So there'd be my 2 bets, 20-1 plus, about those 2, Leave of Absence and Knight of Allen.
Ooh, I like it. I do like some of the ones at bigger prices as well. Like Blow Your Wad, I can make a small case for through Leave of Absence too. Johnny Hu, now the fact of the jockeys, the way that's come in, I think him at 14s is looking crazy as well. But it's just such a good race. Even the Doyen Chief, we like horses that come from that Coral Gold Cup. We go in there. He didn't run because he refused at the start, but I know he got his win at Kempton, but I still think he's a nice horse. I thought he'd win when he came here after that Coral Gold Cup. He didn't.
I think he's a bit soft in a finish, to be honest, the Doyen Chief.
Yeah, 100%. But there's plenty of horses in with chances in that race, and like I say, I'm lacking conviction in any of them. But that's good that you've got a couple in there for us, Will, because that's the second leg of the handicap treble on the first day that you've given us the winners for. But before we come onto the plate, and we've got the National Hunt Chase, to be fair, we could have that as another handicapper. We've got to talk about the Champion Hurdle, Will, because Lossiemouth does come here. For me, I've said in lots of the previews, I think she's a 2.5 miler. I can fully admit that some of that is in the hope that she didn't come here because I'd backed Brighter Days Ahead, and I thought her chance would be massively diminished in the fact of Lossiemouth coming here. The fact that Lossiemouth is here, she's 2-1 top price. She's going to continue to be supported as far as I'm concerned. I would imagine she'll be nearer 6-4 come the off time, which means the new line at 11-4 I think is going to be bigger. He was weak last year, wasn't he, before the Turners. Brighter Days Ahead at 9-2. Look, she's probably going to be a little bit bigger at times as well. And then 8-1 Golden Ace, 16's Poneros now after he was the wise guy's horse, wouldn't he? But it doesn't pan out the same now. There's big prices in there. 3 places up for grabs. There will be markets without Lossiemouth, Will, so maybe there's a way to play it in there. But my view on this race has completely changed in the fact that Lossiemouth is a very, very, very good mare. She's a very, very, very good mare at Cheltenham. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, if she ran against Brighter Days Ahead somewhere like Leopardstown, then I think that Brighter Days Ahead, in the right circumstances, could beat her. But I think they could sort of go toe-to-toe, the two of them. But it is Cheltenham, and for all that I think Brighter Days Ahead might be able to get away with it, you haven't got to worry about that at all with Lossiemouth. And I fully believe that Lossiemouth versus the New Line, as much as I think Lossiemouth is better potentially at 2.5 miles, I think that the New Line would be better at 2.5 miles too. So I think that at this distance, Lossiemouth will beat the New Line, I reckon, 10 times out of 10 personally. So I think that she represents a bit of value at 2-1. For all that, I don't know if I could actually want to bring myself to back her, but I need a little bit of time to calm down with the fact that she's been declared. And I was looking at the race through sort of, I guess not even rose-tinted glasses, but in the hope that she wouldn't come here, because for me, I'd made my mind up with her not being here. So it's confused me slightly, but how do you see it, Will? Hopefully from, I guess, a bit more of a neutral or more rational perspective, because 2-1 about Lossiemouth in a weak Champion Hurdle, I think it's probably a very fair price, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. So I think I've got to take quite a strong opinion here, which is rare of me to be quite so off the fence, if you know what I mean. But I still think Brighter Days Ahead should be favourite. I genuinely do. I think if using the Cheltenham angle, okay, with Lossiemouth, she's unbeaten here. Fine. You know, she has shown she's handled the track very, very well. Brighter Days Ahead has had 2 below par performances at Cheltenham, granted. In the Mares Novice Hurdle, I mean, we've said it on countless previews and it's been said before, Jack Kennedy and Paul Townend were riding that race to beat each other. They didn't realise Golden Ace was quite so good. They gave her first run and they couldn't reel her back in. You know, Jack Kennedy has said many times if he'd have his time again, he'd ride that race completely differently. So you can forgive her that. I think she's better than that bare form. And you can forgive her the run in the Champion Hurdle last year because she came back with an injury. So scrap that run. If you look at Lossiemouth's runs around Cheltenham, okay, and I'll just read out the horses that finished second to her at Cheltenham in all of her starts. Galamarceau, Love Envoi, Tell Me Something Girl, Jade de Grugy. In terms of bare form around Cheltenham, okay, yes, she's unbeaten there, but you know, would Brighter Days Ahead not beat all of those horses by similar margins? Would any other horse in this race not do similar? You know, you've just got to try and look at it a little bit more tangibly, I think. And Brighter Days Ahead has beaten Lossiemouth last time out in the DRF on her second start of the season. That was Lossiemouth's third start of the season. She very nearly beat her on her seasonal debut, Brighter Days Ahead, having had a setback. I mean, I'm struggling to see how there is such a big... Well, I don't struggle to see how there is. I know why there is, but I think that reason is wrong. So I'm pretty strong. Brighter Days Ahead at 9-2, 5-1. Just has to be a really strong each-way bet. You know, really strong for me.
And then with that said as well, so I would imagine some of the viewers will be thinking the same too. With her being the type of horse that, I know we've got the excuses for Cheltenham, but could we, if you were to, I know you don't, but like people might view her as a boom or bust type horse for Cheltenham. You've mentioned there that you think she's a strong each way bet. Is that definitely where you want to play? You'd think rather than playing the wind dart, if she runs to her standard, then you think she could still get beat?
Oh yeah. No, definitely. I don't, you know, at Cheltenham in the Mares Novices Hurdle, she was placed, wasn't she? You know, she just didn't have a tactical setup that suited her. Jack Kennedy was still learning about her. And last year you can scrap scrap the run whatsoever in what was a bizarre champion hurdle anyway. Scrap everyone's run in that in that race.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't see her. I mean, you look at any other run in her career, she's not a boom or bust performer.
No.
She's pretty consistent. She's high quality. Um, and Gordon Elliott has always been effusive in just how good he thinks she is, and they've set their colours to the champion hurdle mast from a long way out. Pretty much when she came back from the setback, they said, right, we're going down the champion hurdle route. They weren't thinking, oh, we'll get there and see mare's hurdle, maybe champion hurdle. They've got unfinished business here, and they love her, and I think she's got a massive chance.
Yeah, good. Because like I say, I'm very fresh I know they mentioned it last night that she was going to come to this race, but I'm very fresh in my mindset of coming to this race. And like I say, because she wasn't coming here, it was very easy for me to say, well, I think that Lossiemouth would beat Brighter Days Ahead here. And I've not had the time to probably ingest the race as I should. And like I say, from the gut feeling and the initial response from me, I feel like especially when she was 5 stars, like that's going to shorten up. I could see her contracting. You've made me feel a lot better there, to be fair, Will. It is one of those, isn't it? The first time cheap pieces is a mad one as well for me.
Yeah.
Because State Man last year was 8-1 cheap pieces. And yes, they would have worked out if he'd have stood up because he would have potentially won the race. But she's in first time cheap pieces and she got beat last time out. And I know she got beat by Brighter Days Ahead, but they're all things that I know Copec de Board won in a hood last year, but they're not cheap pieces. There's varying stats to go about. I tried to have a look on one of my databases and I'm not convinced it was completely sure, but I looked at some Willie Mullins stuff. There's been some bits out there to do with Willie Mullins in Grade 1's first-time cheap pieces, but I looked specifically for hurdles, and it was bad for hurdle races. Like cheap pieces and chases for Grade 1s when they're sent-off favourite was a positive angle. It's like anything. You can prove anything with facts, can't you? But it is an individual thing for horses, isn't it? And I don't know what it is about. I don't. She's not really come across to me as the type of horse that you'd think she needed any headgear personally.
No, I never thought that. She's never been particularly, kind of lazy or need to concentrate her or sharpen her mind or get her to stick her neck out and look straight and battle on. I don't know. I mean, it's not something I've factored in too much really.
No.
If it improves her from where she was last time, well, it'll need to improve her, is my opinion. It might not. It might go the other way. I don't know. But you could see Brighter Days Ahead improving from last time out because it'll be her third start of the season. So. Yeah,
this is good, Will, because if I was going to watch any previews, I'm glad I'm watching this one with you because you've made me feel better about Brighter Days Ahead. The cool thing with Lossiemouth, though, is, again, like faster ground, isn't it? It's basically good ground. So you'd think if it was a stamina-laden trip, I know the slow ground would help Brighter Days Ahead because she moves through it well. But this is going to be a champion hurdle fast 2 miles for Lossiemouth. And she got done at Kempton by Constitution Hill because of it. And while Constitution Hill is good.
Brighter Days Ahead set that ridiculously fast time at Leopardstown last season. That was pretty fast ground.
Yeah. You're making me feel a lot better, Will. Thank you for that. The thing with Lossiemouth as well is you think about it because she's been about for so long with the Triumph and all that stuff as well. Like she's a 7-year-old, isn't she? So it's not like this is the last roll of the dice for her going into Cheltenham winning races. And I think that's a part of the decision potentially with the champion hurdle that let's find out if she's a champion hurdler. Everyone's talking about it. And if it's not, why she could come back and win a couple of mares hurdles at 8 and 9, couldn't she?
Yeah.
And I know if they run her in the mares hurdle again this year, I think that would make it really hard to come back, wouldn't it? I genuinely looked at her last season as an outside player thinking she could step up to 3 miles and go and mop up the stairs hurdle division. Yeah. So who knows? She might win the champion hurdle this year, stairs hurdle in a couple of years, but hopefully Brighter Days Ahead gets this one. I'm excited. You've made me feel a bit better there, Will. And
I mean, I might be wrong, but I just, every way I've kind of gone around my thought process with it, I just think if I've got this opinion. And Brighter Days Ahead is 5-1. 5.
Yeah, she is massive. She is massive. Well, we'll have to see how it pans out. But you've made me feel better there, Will. So thank you for that. In the plate, Will, I'm classing this as the third handicap for first year. I know the National Hunt Chases, but like I was talking about in those decent each way block bets, I know we might be able to get some in the National Hunt Chase. That's probably quite a good race for it, to be fair. But we've got 5 places up for grabs. Most firms, a couple of 6 places. Madara's in, McClory's in, the ones we're expecting. Will the Wise, named after you, I believe. It is a big trends ticker for me in this race. I've looked at some of his forms as well since he's been declared. I can see why he's being supported. He's top price 9-1, bottom price 13-2. I think he is definitely one of obvious interest that probably wasn't as much on my radar before Final Decks, but as is the way in some of these races. How do you see this race panning out? Because we talked about some horses like Donica that have come out. There was potential. Waterford Whispers could come here, could not. There's been a bit of a change to the race, but the market's been driven around Madara and McClory for a while anyway, and it still seems to be the case now. Like I say, Will the Wise, is being supported, and understandably so. And there probably has to be a couple of springers in the market at bigger prices. But what would your stance be on it now, especially now that Donnacha's gone out?
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, Donica would have had a rattling good chance. I presume he's had a setback or something because he came out of both races that he was entered in. Zurich, each way, very small stakes is probably the way. Well, it is definitely the way I'm going to play the race, and I think is the way that other people should play the race. I've gone up with a recommendation on Zurich because he seemingly Darragh O'Keefe sided with Down Mexico Way against him. But there has been history of second strings in that yard. They won the Grand Annual, didn't they, with the mare a few years ago, who was a supposed second string. Rachel Blackmore wasn't riding. Yeah, that's the one. And Brian Hayes, great booking. Love Brian Hayes as a jockey on Zurich. The way he won that novices handicap chase in October over course and distance was really impressive. In the fastest chase time of the card that day, a card that included the 3 mile handicap chase won by 3 card Bragg, which is rock solid top end staying handicap. And all the way around there, a quicker final circuit. So Zurich's, handled the track really well, loves the ground, pretty solid jumper, really unexposed in a race chock full of horses that, they're either not suited to the trip, track, or ground. Whereas Zurich, we know there is, and he's got a bit of improvement to come. With the top 2 in the market, I can see why they're popular. I always slightly worried about Madara over 2.5 miles. Never felt it was quite, seeing it out as strongly as he did at a well-run 2. I might well be barking up the wrong tree with that. And McClory, he was disappointing last year, wasn't he, in the county hurdle? And if you look at his form and watch him, he just has maybe an inkling that his form's suggesting he's slightly better on flatter tracks. Now, that might be when he's been fitter and more ready. I don't know. But at the prices they are, I'm happy to let them go and prove me wrong.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? And we've got some big handicaps through the week to go on, like Supremely West Indies Pertemps, for example, is like a similar sort of price, about 4-1 poke. So I'm sure there's a few that might want to maybe couple some of these horses up in each way doubles and stuff. But yeah, I hear you with those. We had a comment on the live stream saying that they think the plate's rather poor this year. I probably would echo that too, yeah. And it's hard because your horses like a Madara that was eye-catching at Kempton and even McClory, I think people that wanted to bet them would have been on at the bigger prices. And I feel like the bookies now are priced as they are because they know that some people will still follow in. But I would probably say and argue that they're bad value bets. But it's difficult when you do these on these previews, isn't it? Because if one of them goes and wins, people would say, well, how could a 4-1 winner be a bad value bet? But I think it does sit like that. Like I wouldn't be imploring people to bet them, even though I've got someone at bigger prices, not doing that for a Twitter trumpet perspective. But like I think they've got their obvious chances, but they're definitely a bit skinny. So Zurich's an interesting one for you at a price. Like I say, Will the Wise 9-1 top price is another one I think is going to tighten up a little bit. So it might be, they could be a couple that could be good for some each way. Multiples for the Tuesday or across the week. Right, the National Hunt Chase, Will. It is a handicap chase. There's 17 in here, so that's good. Normal 4 places have been boosted by some firms. 5th of the odds 5 places. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when it's a quarter of the odds 4 and it's a 5th of the odds 5, it's the same thing, isn't it? You can just choose how things go, whether you want to get the different types of concessions in there. I mean, I'd always go for the extra places personally. Now, we've got Backmere Sackme, who's been supported very well in the last sort of 10 days. 4-1 top price. We've got Newton Tornado, who's been really well supported since final declarations. He's 5-1. Weighed out's 15-2 top price, but as short as 11-2. Iceberg Theory's 10-1. He's one that probably of the rest of the field has been nibbled in and come in that probably wasn't on as many people's radars to begin with, but looks to have a real good chance based on that run back in November. He's been held off the track for a long while. Whether that's been a plan or not, I don't know, but he feels like the obvious shortener at this stage since we've had the declarations. Will, how do you see this one? Is there any value about? I talked about walking on air for the Kim Muir. He's in here, which I found was like semi-interesting, but I think I'm just making a case for him because I had a bit of a case for him in a Kim Muir before and he wasn't good enough then and all my theories were wrong. Is the front 3 in the market, like weighed out's arguably maybe too high in the handicap weights, even though he's got a bit of a chance, I think. Yeah. Tornado's got an obvious chance. Backmere Sackme's probably got a chance, but needs like a real strong ride in the race. I think it's a hard one to have any confidence in personally.
Yeah, at the top of the market, I'm not particularly inspired by the prices of those that you mentioned there. Wondered if Newton Tornado would have preferred slightly softer ground. Maybe that might be an angle to potentially take him on, though clearly he's very, very good and very, very progressive. Iceberg Theory, as our follower just mentioned there on the live chat, could give Iceberg Theory a definite chance. I think he's progressive and he's obviously in good form, and he comes here for a master trainer, actually bringing over horses for from a small string for the Cheltenham Festival. But the one that I think is possibly the most overpriced horse of the whole, well, bar Brighter Days Ahead, having said what I've said about her, the one that might just be the most overpriced of the whole day, I potentially feel, is Silver Thorn for Emma Lavelle. And the reason that he is because he finished fourth last time out and was beaten 26 lengths behind Holloway Queen, who reopposes here. And you think, well, how the hell is he going to turn around that, 26 lengths, not just with Holloway Queen, but with, plenty of other progressive handicap chasers. But the key for this horse is the ground, without a shadow of a doubt. He doesn't like testing ground whatsoever. And he had been really progressive over fences up until that point. And crucially, his jumping, which was terrible on debut at Lingfield, it's got better with every run. And even at Newbury last time, on ground that he wouldn't have liked, he was much, much better jumping, which he'll need to be. But I think he's been crying out for a real stamina test on a decent surface. The best performance he's put in this season was at Exeter when he got that. And he was running away from some pretty solid handicappers on that occasion. You go back to his best hurdles run as well. He's got the inherent quality because he wasn't beaten too far in the Challow hurdle, won by the New Lion. So the ability's there. He looks like he's going to stay. He loves good ground. And he's overpriced because the bookies have thought he's reached the ceiling of his ability because of the last run. But you can certainly give him some forgiveness for that. I think he'll be better. And Emma Lavelle, I know, was desperate for him to get in. I saw a quote from her somewhere, I can't remember where it was, where she was, I think he needed 3 or 4 to come out. And it was almost along the lines of, well, we've got Marchand too, and we've got this guy, and I'd be desperate for him to get in because I like the both of them.
Ooh, interesting. And obviously Harry Cobden's on Walker that I mentioned, and he's one that does typically ride for Emma Lavelle, doesn't he? That was mentioned in the comments by Dom about Harry Cobden going in there. He could have made the weight for Silverthorne, I think, wouldn't he? So would you read anything into that?
I imagine he's been claimed by connections of Walking on Air early, Harry Cobden. So I'd imagine that'll have been the thing. And possibly, well, he could have done the weight, I'm sure, 10.8. As things stood, perhaps it might not have been with some of the other entries earlier on. But yeah, I think he's probably been claimed, Harry Cobden. And I know who else rode Silverthorne recently? Ben Jones. But he'd have been claimed for Pick Rock, of course. So I think Emma Lavelle has probably thought, well, who's the kind of next best in a similar kind of style? And Johnny Burke is right. He's right in amongst it with those jockeys for me. So no negative whatsoever.
Yeah, agreed. And when they're that sort of price, like 33-1 in a race that's going to suit certain types of horses, and especially a horse that goes off from the front as well. You can see it time and time again with these big staying chases, can't you? That they give them a bit too much rope, or if things get into a rhythm out in front, jumping's the name of the game, isn't it? So Will Smith with a 33-1 potential, I'll put potential in that, winner for the first day at Cheltenham. Yeah. We'll try and be as quick as we can to get through this, because there's obviously lots of content people to view about all the other bits in there. But as it stands for like a best bet or something that people that are watching this live or maybe catching up early and the prices are still there, is there anything at the moment you think people, if they haven't got in their books, they should be getting their books on the sort of in the wake of final decks for Tuesday?
Yeah, Brighter Days Ahead for me, because the price you can back her at now is obviously bigger because Lossiemouth was declared, but I think that's the wrong assessment from the layers. And thanks to that comment there about Alexi as well, that's just reminded me I do like Alexi each way in the Champion Hurdle as well. He'll be one of the last off the bridle. It's just whether that kind of extra oomph that you need for the final stages of a Champion Hurdle, whether he's quite got that in his locker, but he will run well for a long way. So yeah, Champion Hurdle, lovely market, I think. Brighter Days Ahead should be favourite, and Alexei should probably be 4 or 5 points shorter.
Beautiful. Well, I'm going to leave you with the Friday best bets because, like I say, you can see it. I'm having a bit of a wobble, Will, now at final declarations and a few things changing. I'm excited. I've just got to do a bit more work to get them out there. But talking about that, there'll be a link in the description for the WhichBookie website for our tips. Loads of Will's tips are already up. There's some good value to be found on those. I'll continue to get mine up at 8 a.m. on the day of races so that if you've got best odds guaranteed with some firms, which hopefully most of you have, that will be factored into the prices. So I've got a bit of time to take to think about this, and I've got a bit more time with you, Will, to basically let you help me out with some of those races as well. We'll look at the other 3 days. We haven't got the final declarations for the rest of the cards just yet, but I think there's enough to talk about on all of them that makes this extra part worthwhile. So Wednesday, Will, like I say, we touched on Mighty Park and the fact that he goes to the Supreme now. That's obviously made a change to the Turners market because he was sat as favourite for that race. We don't we don't know who's going because we haven't got the final declaration there, but we can have a good inkling now. There's horses like Ballyfad that were entered in here and the Supreme, not declared for the Supreme. Your King Rasco Grey, they've talked about Sober being a horse from the Willie Mullins yard that is a fancy wherever he goes. So I think we've got a good idea of who will come in this race. There's a bit of form franking for No Drama this end as well recently in the last couple of weeks of stuff that's going on. So yeah, I'm keen to know your thoughts on the Turners, because is there I guess not necessarily a point, but is there an opportunity to get a bet in for this before final decks on Wednesday, or would you rather wait and see the final field before you played?
I think I'd probably rather wait and see, because you're going to get better prices, probably better place terms, and with regards to the Willie Mullins representatives, you'll have jockey bookings as well. So I think I'll probably wait, but I do think that perhaps those at single figures now, the movement has gone too far towards them at this stage. They're all very high quality horses. No Drama this end, Grade 1 winner. Skylight Hustle, Grade 1 winner. Ballyfad King Rasco Grey were right in there in the mix in the Grade 1 at the DRF. All over 2 miles, so they're stepping up to 2.5, those last few horses I've mentioned. Yeah. Sober is the one, seems to be the preview circuit loving horse. Everyone seems to have mentioned it, and as a result, has been backed accordingly, or certainly the price has been clipped accordingly. A couple of those that I'll just be given mention to that I'm going to keep an eye on price and jockey bookings, both for Willie Mullins actually. Sortudo, I think, is a really, really nice horse, and he was a bit unlucky not to win last time out. Better ground, I think, will suit him. And Loritz Destraval, who I have already backed at 33-1. I was wowed by what he did at Thurles on his second hurdle start. So he'd be a live player if he turned up here. And one of Dan Skelton's, Soldier Reeves, I think could be a potentially big price as well, especially if Old Park Star wins the Supreme easily, because he hit the line strong, admittedly at a respectable distance behind him at Haydock, but he'd be of interest too.
Lovely. I'm still keen on Ballyfad, Will, and I'm glad that he's not been declared for the Supreme. Like you say, some of the prices have already contracted, haven't they, for some of these horses? But, I mean, he's a top price 7-1. I think the real key thing's going to be for him and Skylight Hustle is who Jack Kennedy rides. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, Jack Kennedy will ride Ballyfad. Like, he's the best chance of the two horses. But I know that Jack Kennedy does love Skylight Hustle. I say I know that, like I'm speak to Jack the whole time. It's only because he thinks, I think the Leopardstown Christmas race where Talk the Talk fell, and I think Talk the Talk was definitely going to win, Jack was convinced that he still would have won the race anyway. And I was thinking, well, maybe it's just because you love the horse and all those bits in there. But I think personally that Ballyfad's got the best chance of the two of them. There's a risk, isn't there? Of course, if I do that and you're wrong and it's not the first string, Jack Kennedy's not jacked up on it, the price could change and then you play those bits in there. I think 7-1, 6-1 about him looks like a fair price. But we also might have the opportunity that there could be quite a lot of horses that go in this field because we've got so many that came out of the Supreme. So 3 places, it might be that it's worth waiting to get an each way price about him. And I can't imagine his price will contract that much straight after declarations, because No Drama this end is going to come, Skylight Hustle will come, King Rasco Grey will come, Ballyfad himself, Sober will come, Active Innocent, Sortudo. They're all in the front of the market anyway, so it'll probably sit and stay where it is, but I'm still team Ballyfad, so maybe a little bit more bullish on Wednesday than I am on Tuesday at this stage. But obviously at final declarations, I'll have my usual wobble and I'll have to rethink. That's why I need until 8 a.m. on the day of the races, We'll move on to the Brown Advisory, though, because again, massive change on this one. Gordon said, if Romeo Coolio comes to Cheltenham, it would only be for the Arkle. I want to save him for Fairy House, and he's running him in the Browns. Now, I think that, coupled with mention of Final Demand as well, recently potentially not being seen there. And, of course, we've got Cocktail Divin that's been favourite for Jack Richards that's coming here. Yeah. All the conspiracy theories, a message in saying, that's why they're not running in that race, because they knew that Final Demand was injured. It's terrible that we don't get this information. No one knows any of that stuff, do they? We don't know what it is. But as it stands, Romeo Coolio, K. Duffy, Final Demand, Wendigo, Cocktail Divan, I think he'll come here. The Big Westerner, Western Fold, Oscar's brother, Kit's Ball, Willie Mullins has said is going to come here as well. There's just loads of horses potentially with a chance, isn't there, Will? So we were sweet on Wendigo before, weren't we? Still 6-1 now. I say still 6-1 in respect of the fact that he's been nibbled in, but he's staying at 6-1 for the last couple of days. He was a little bit bigger when we talked about him. Are you still strong on him? Because given the fact that there's been some horses with their chances scuppered and horses that are coming here, he's just been the solid, obvious one since Boxing Day, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I bet Jamie Snowden's loving all of this, because it seems that every other horse in the race is being talked about for one reason or another. Whether it be they're going to come here or they're not, or the ground's not right for them, or he must be absolutely loving it, because Wendigo, just again, I'll use the phrase, he ticks every box for me. He's quality. We know he's up to that particular level. We saw that in the Quarto Star Novices Chase. We saw it in the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle last year, where he was unlucky not to finish closer. He jumps well. Ground, doesn't make too much difference to him. He just wouldn't want it really fast, but which staying chaser would? There's that in there. And he's just a lovely, lovely horse. Stays really strongly, jumps well, and I think Cheltenham 3 miles is absolutely his bag. You could tell around Kempton he was just edging out to his left, and it was a bit sharp, and he could never quite get on an even keel. Around Cheltenham he will, and whatever beats him wins. He's rock solid for me. And I think he's got to be an each way bet in amongst many others that seem to be yo-yoing in the market. The other one that if he does come here, I'll probably back if I can get a similar kind of price is Cocktail Divin. Because I'm not sure I subscribe to the notion that he's not a strong stayer. I think it's just the way the season has panned out so far for him. And it was soft ground when he got beat by Oscar's brother. It was a time when Henry Bromhead's horses weren't quite firing as well. I was wowed by what he did at Leopardstown at Christmas time. So I think he's a massive player as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing with Cocktail Divin, he did a pre-season preview. We talked about some predictions for the season. I had him marked down as a dark horse for the season because he finished last season on 137. I thought he ran really well at Aintree behind Honesty Policy, and he looked to me as the type that Henry de Bromhead would improve a chaser. And with this novices handicap chase being here, I thought he's 137. He's not going to be coming into the festival like in the high 140s like he is, or the 150 that he is going into the race. It's like, or 155 I think he got. Like he's blown his mark with that Christmas run as far as I'm concerned. And if you've got a horse, I know everyone will say it's the graded horse in the handicap, which is true, and we can respect him in those races. If you've got an opportunity to go and win a grade 1 in this contest that's now turning a bit murky, and from a ratings perspective, he's officially better than most of the horses in here, you've got to roll the dice in the race they can go for. And I agree with you, when he ran behind Oscar's brother, it's still a decent run, isn't it? Over 3 miles on ground that didn't suit. And it was just his second start, and he's clearly progressed since then. So I agree this is the right race for him. This is the other beauty with the socials, isn't it? That people will be on Twitter saying, Henry de Bromhead doesn't know what he's doing, please run him in the right race. But it's because you've got your anti-post bets on it, isn't it? I don't tweet and say to William Runners, please run Lossiemouth and the Mares, even though that's what I want to say. We just have to take it as it is. I don't think there's anybody out there that really should think that the wrong race for Cocktail Divin is this one, given the way that it's set up in there. But of course, it is a game of opinions. We'll see how they sit. Loads of them have got chance, didn't they? I think Wendigo's the solid one that I stick with. My only thing in the back of my mind is I just wonder if he's going to be a really good horse, but always just bump into something that's just a bit better than him. And because this could technically be a deep brown advisory, he's going to have more than just the 1 or 2 that there typically is in a year like this that can show it. And, there's a few horses in here that definitely have got the potential to beat him. So I agree. I think he's a good each way bet. With the fact the field's probably going to hold up, we might get some extra places in there as well. So similar to like Ballyfad, I think both of these will be right there on the frame. In the first couple of races, I'd be fairly sweet on both of those as an each way bet, for the fact that I do respect that there are obviously other horses and other chances in the race. The Coral Cup wheel, the BetMGM Cup wheel, it's been smashed in the betting for Stormheart recently. 8-1 top price, but as low as 13-2. I think David Casey mentioned something, to be fair, about Stormheart, saying something about he was worried about him carrying this much weight, or he basically made some sort of flying negative comment about the horse. Which I took a tiny bit of notice to, but everything from everywhere else is talking about Stormheart being almost bomb-proof for this race. So he is where he is in the market. Katira, I can't even believe I'm saying this. Katira's 8-1 wheel. When we did our preview and recorded that before Dan Skelton mentioned her, she was 50s for the race. Madness. I started a jokes in here at 12-1 top price. Iberico Lord's 12-1 now. Copec to me, another one that's sort of been well fancied, 12-1. The Yellow Clay that I like's 14s, but general 10-1 shot. Proper deep race, this one, and it is every single year, isn't it? We get some horses that win this at big prices. You do get the sort of plot jobs that seem to be findable after the result, I guess. Where's your thoughts sitting now with BetMGM, considering the market's changed a lot since we last spoke about it?
Yeah, not a strong opinion, to be honest. Probably three that I'll definitely have a bit more of a look at once we get final declarations. Iberico Lord obviously loves the track. When he won the Greatwood Hurdle, he showed that, and he looked really good when winning the Lanzarote last time out, when clearly not expected to do so as well. That's always a good sign, I think, when a horse does something in what was perhaps a prep or an unexpected performance. They're probably going to be better for it next time. So he's got to be of Interest Iberico Lord, and a couple of others at sort of sneaky bigger prices that I did think were mildly interesting. Let's put it that way. Beckett Rock for Henry de Bromhead I thought was interesting. He ran a decent enough race in the Martin Pipe last year, actually, when he was perhaps on the wrong part of the track in the closing stages, and just not seen to quite best effect. He didn't get declared today in the plate, which is, I thought, what the race they were going to go for with him, which was interesting. And I really liked him in that, actually, given how he's jumped over fences this year. So whether they declare him for this, I don't know. That would be interesting. And the other one at a wild price as well, a horse who ran well last year in the Pertemps, is a horse called Carl de Terrell for Philip Fenton, who has just looked a little bit of a short runner. That's niggling in the back of my mind. Every time you watch him, most of the time it's been overstaying trips. He's not quite got home. Now, it's either that he won't get home over any trip, or it's that he needs 2.5 miles. Not sure which camp I fall in yet with that. I'll have to do a little bit more work on the videos, but he definitely ran a cracker in the Pertemps last year. He was pretty much in front, jumping the last, actually. So he's of interest.
Oh, I like that. And they're 23 and 30, respectively, Beckett Rock and Carl de Tours. We've got the massive 60 wheel at the confirmation stages. It's got to work its way down to 24. Loads of options for horses to go to the Martin Pipe and stuff. Speaking of Beckett Rock as well, a friend of mine was really, really, really keen on him for the Kim Muir. Thought he was a bit of a plot job for that stuff. Yeah. And again, I know it's a very different trip, but very keen on the horse. I saw the same as you, that he wasn't declared in the plate. I'll be honest, I was ignorant enough thinking that he was in those chase races. He wasn't even entered in here as far as I was concerned, but he obviously is. So there's some interesting, like, I guess, changes that can happen when we see final declarations in here. But yeah, it's going to be a good race. It's hard to pick this one apart any more than we've done there. So we'll leave that. Like we say, final selections will be available on the Whichbookie website when we've made our minds up. Right, cross-country race, Will. Another race where the market's changed, funnily enough, since we did our preview a couple of weeks ago. But it's good. It's good to see the difference. We've got the timestamp before, the timestamp now, and this is the best part of getting the updates, right? We can hear what we think then and now. Favori de Champdou, 5-2 favourite now. Stumptown's weak in the market. Big price, 7-2 is the top price. Sorry, not big price. The top price is 7-2. Desert Moor House, that's been one well supported as well. General Ford, a one shot, 9-2. I think it's because when we did our preview, we didn't have the weights, but he stayed on his Irish mark, which would always be a popular ploy for people going into Cheltenham. Vanillier, who you quite liked, was 15-2 top price now, so a little bit bigger. Final Orders is 9-1, then it's 14s or bigger, the rest of them. So when we talked about this before, Will, I thought it was probably just between the front couple in the market. I'll give Desert Moor House a bit of respect because there's money in there and the fact that he stayed on that unchanged mark. But he's an 11-year-old, isn't he? I know he's definitely not been to Cheltenham cross country. I don't even think he's been to Cheltenham before. I couldn't have a horse having their first look at the cross country fences in a competitive race like this when you've got the class of a Favori de Champdou and Stumptown there. The two negatives with Stumptown and Favori de Champdou is we haven't seen Stumptown since October. So, I mean, I know he can do it, run well fresh. That would be a slight niggle. And then Favori de Champdou, Michael O'Leary's come out and said that it was a hard day that he ran on trials, or a hard race on trials day, and that he was a bit concerned. But the money would suggest there's nothing to be worried about in there. I don't know what I could do in this race, Will, because I feel like Favori de Champdou's too short now. I thought he was too short at 4 and 5-1 when we talked about it in the last preview. I just keep getting the feeling that 7-2 Stumpdown looks like a fair price because he's either ready to run in this and they're going to run. Yeah. I wouldn't imagine this is a prep race for anything else. I think Gavin Cromwell can get him ready for something. And as much as he's got to give £5 to Favori de Champdou, I don't think the weight makes much difference to the horses in here, which is why I'm not as fussed about Desert Moor House being on the same weight. So I'm currently sat at the fact that I feel like I'm going to get lured into Stumptown if I was to have anything else on in the race. But that's about it. Vanillier 15-2 looks more tempting to you now, does it?
Not with the ground. I'd have been hopeful for slightly softer ground. I know it is slightly softer on the cross-country course as things stand, but that's not going to have any watering done to it. And we've got 2 predominantly dry days, haven't we, I think? So that's going to be pretty tight, I think, for Vanillier. So, I was definitely keen on him, but it would have to have more juice in the ground, really, for me to side with him each way. The one I could see, if it did end up getting pretty sound or verging on fast, would be Final Orders, because he seemed to really enjoy that fast ground, didn't he, when he won over the track back in December. He'd be of real interest. He obviously wouldn't have Keith Donohue's assistance, but that could be a large factor, I'd imagine. He'll be on Stumptown. So, not a race that I'll get too heavily invested in, I don't think.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm pretty sure I backed... Well, no, I did. I backed Final Orders in a Grand Annual. That might have been the Mascada one you were talking about as well. But then Tiger Roll won a Triumph, didn't he, and won a cross country. So
Yeah.
Shows you can get them all right, we can get them all wrong. Right, the Champion Chase, Will, is a banger. I'm really excited about it. I think it's such a good race, regardless of the horses that do and don't make it. Since our preview, it's sad that Marie National won't be here because he was a live contender coming back to defend his crown. Does mean that we've got Madgeborough now as an odds-on favourite. We've got Lodersud now as a second favourite, 9-2. Ilete Thompson is 5-1. The one I was fairly keen on before. Quilixios is 10-1. The bigger the rest of them. Irish Panther's probably going to come here. He's been nibbled because he's not in the Arkle. But
yeah,
Madgeborough, we obviously talked about him before. Now he's an odds-on poke. Is there anything about him that makes him, I guess, more attractive now? The fact that he's not got Marie National, or would you? I think when we spoke before, we were both fairly keen to take him on, weren't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say really, and I think he probably would prefer slightly more juice in the ground. I'd say that because he's quite a big, heavy topped horse who will want to let himself down, and you'll find out that pretty early in the race. I think with his jumping, whether he's just not quite as happy jumping off or onto such a sounder surface compared to what it was at Leopardstown in the DRF. So it's probably, looking at it, not a race I'm going to get too involved in really, because Madgeborough I can see putting up another top level performance and it not being worth taking him on. And then you look at some of those that you think, well, okay, if I had the opposite view to that, which horses would I want to take him on with? Which ones would be each way players? And there's not really anything that excites me at the prices, I must admit. I think, Lodersud, Lilete, Tom, they're, priced up skinny enough, really, compared to their level of ability with Madgeborough. Even Quilixios now, has been nibbled and nibbled and nibbled, and he's probably at the top end of where he'd want to be, really, in terms of price. So, yeah, it's a shame. Obviously, Supreme, Arkle, Champion Chase, 3 quality races that I don't really have a strong betting opinion in, which is, I'm not doing my job properly, Dave. I do apologise.
No, it's fine because I have got a strong opinion. I'm still so bullish on Ilete Thompson. And yeah. I know that Madgeborough put in an RPR that was better, that was really good last time, and it's phenomenal. And I know people have the question marks about Ilete Thompson at Cheltenham as well, but really, if you look at the performances he's had at Cheltenham, they haven't been terrible. Like, his Arkle run wasn't the best for jumping, but then he backed that up at Aintree with a 170 performance. And I know people will say, well, that was Aintree. But you think what he did in his first race in Open Company, where he slapped up John Bon in that Celebration Chase, like the year that he ran at Cheltenham, Aintree and Punchestown as a novice, like he ran in all 3 festivals and won 2 of them. And then he takes a year off and comes back fresh and goes and puts in a worldly performance. Like, this horse can do it fresh, can do it when he's had racing. And I think the fact that he made the mistakes at Ascot's obviously afforded him the prize because he was favourite before. But he can be forgiven it. Like, any horse can make mistakes in their races. And he's jumped fine in so many races. There isn't a chase horse that can he's put up 4 170 plus performances, one of them as a novice. So you can't be putting up 170 performances if you can't jump over fences at speed. Yeah. I just think he's going to absolutely batter him. And I think the ground as well is going to help him because he's got some good performances on slower ground, but that Celebration Chase was on fast ground at Sandown. And I know Sandown's probably always heavy no matter what they put the description, but I think he's got a proper chance. And obviously with Madgeborough being ridden by Mark Walsh, Paul Tannen's going to be a top. A couple of the performances for Ilete Thompson, where he won well, when he won at Punchestown, beat Get It Warrior, and even the Celebration Chase, he was under Danny Mullins. But when he's gone under Paul Townend, the 2 performances at the start of this season have been even better than what he did before. Paul Townend's an absolute, just a phenomenal jockey. And as much as Madgeborough jumps well, and then obviously from a stable perspective, not going to try and get each other beat, but I think Paul Townend's going to know how to ride Ilete Thompson to the best effect in this race. And potentially, if it means that he has to go a bit harder on him and it means that he sets the race up for and Madgeborough helps him out, then that's fine. But I think he's going to be able to get this horse to travel in behind. It depends what the field size looks like. But I think that Ilete Thompson's going to come tanking. And if Paul Townend sees Madgeborough makes a mistake in front of him, he's going to think, I've got this. And I think that confidence will exude through the horse. Whereas I think in the Arkle, when he made a couple of early mistakes, I would be adamant that potentially the jockey or the horse had taken a negative from that and he just thought, I can't be bothered to go now. So Paul steadies him over the first few fences in this race. I think that Ilete Thompson wins the Champion Chase. 5-1 for me is a stonking bet. Like I say, with the Wendigo one, with the Ballyfad stuff, I concede that there are rivals who could beat them, but they're all 5 or 6-1. I'd play all of them each way and think that I'm definitely going to get one of the 3 to win, but definitely, inverted commas, please gamble responsibly. And obviously, it's just an opinion, not a fact. Right, Will, the Grand Annual, a really good-looking race. Be aware, we've talked about lots. Ryan's Rocket, you were keen on. He's been supported. In the Pocket, I mentioned, at a big price, I think, as well. Now he's 10-1. Van der Poel was always there or thereabouts, wasn't he, in the market? Been a bit of money for Jazzy Matty, suspiciously, because he's been rubbish this season. Highland's Legacy is the one that's got form boost left, right and centre recently. Release the Beast, I keep getting told by lots of people that's going to go and win the race. So the Grand Annual, Will,
Hmm.
I've still got no conviction in the race. To be honest with you, I could still have a short list of about 6 or 7 in here. Do you have
Yeah.
a strong opinion for the viewers at this stage?
It wouldn't be a strong opinion. The two that I'm considering backing are Ryan's Rocket and Vanderpoel. That'll be the two. I'll let you into that particular secret now. Not that it's really that much of a secret. Ryan's Rocket was, look, it was way too early out at Kempton, wasn't it, in the Desert Orchid Chase to know what would have transpired there. But he was still travelling, well within himself at a very, very strong tempo set by Thistleask. He won at Newbury in a very, very well-run 2-mile handicap chase the time before that. Won very cosily as well. And Vanderpoel has just done nothing but improve over fences this season as well. And he'll love the ground. The faster the ground, the better for him. So that'd be the two I'd be considering. Just as niggling doubts about both of them. Ryan's Rocket is a more hold-up performer. Will that suit around Cheltenham's old course? Even in a big field, not so sure. And Vanderpoel, just worry about the resolution. He sometimes has perhaps just not quite put it all in, but that's maybe before he's really clicked into the gear that he's in now. So I'm still toying around with that, whether I fully trust him to be man enough to win a Grand Annual, which you have to be, don't you? So, but quality wise, he definitely could.
Yeah, echo that. That's the hard thing, I think, with this year's Grand Annual. You've got so many horses that if they were able to run to their best, have got a proper chance. It is just the question of whether they're going to do it on the day, isn't it? Vanderpoel is a real head scratcher for me because he wins or he runs really poorly, like gets well beaten, doesn't he? And I guess that's the concern, isn't it? But these are the types of races, again, like a couple of darts in these is no like silly way to play the race. I think at this stage, though, while we've still got some firms doing 4 places a quarter of the odds, I'd be happy to wait till the decks. We've got 37 as the runners, the max field of 20 this year rather than it being a little bit bigger. I think it's where the market's sat. All the main ones should get in. I mean, Ryan's Rocket's 27 on the list. That would be the only slight caveat with him, wouldn't it? But I think he'll get in. I need to take a bit more time on that one. So we'll move on for the sake of the viewers and us as well, Will. The bumper, exciting looking race because we talk about it that there's it's tricky with bumpers, I guess, before it comes to the spring festivals. But when it comes to any graded race, we've got a lot of form to go by. How do you sit with this one? Because I'll just say a little line on this, the fact that Love Signed Daniil, I think, has genuinely got a good chance. They didn't expect him to be as good as he was, which they've been vocal about, but he's clearly a very good horse, so I can understand why he's head of the market and I like him. Quirin's the one, or Kieran, however we're going to say it. He's so interesting for the fact that he's a really good horse, but Patrick just can't do the weight on him. And I think actually when you look at the substance, and I know we've got the record of 4-year-olds and all that bit that's in there, but we've got 4-year-olds, if you look at it in isolation with the ones that have had a chance, so anything that's 11 to 1 or shorter, because it was 10 to 1 at the time, so I just wanted to look at that sort of as a decimal. They've got an all right record. We've not had any winners. We've had loads of them that have come second. Blue Sari was the most recent one. But the 4-year-olds now get more than they used to get. They get an extra £2 as well from recent renewals. And Blue Sari was beaten by Envoy Elan by 3/4 of a length. It might not have made the difference, but if he'd have been given an extra £2, you could be looking at a 4-year-old that's won the race. So I'm not going to dismiss Quirin on the back of that. He got 118 RPR for that Nace bumper that he ran in. And with his allowance, that would make him 128 on the RPR performance. So I just think there's a load that have got chances in here. I fully accept that. But I think Quirin at 10 to 1 is a ridiculous price. But I'd probably want to be backing him each way. And while it's each way 3 places, I wouldn't want to play him. So I have backed him as a win dart. If I was advising him each way, I'd want to wait to those extra places, but then his price might contract a small bit. But yeah, I think he's got a proper chance. Bass Hunter or Base Hunter, we were talking about him last time. We weren't sure he was going to come. He is going to come. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Look, he might be one I do end up backing, but it'd be really, really small stakes because there's just, with the bumper, you can't pick your way through the form. You can pick your way through the form of all of them, but you're still going to have so many question marks because they're so young, so unexposed, so inexperienced. You just don't know how they're going to handle Cheltenham, how they'll handle undulating tracks, fast ground. So many unknowns for me. So on what they've done on the track, all of them, I think Base Hunter, should I say, is the pick of what they've done so far. But, he could still put up that performance and 10 might improve past him. I don't know. I'll just give you one snippet of kind of third-hand information, which I thought was really interesting. I did a preview night the other night, and Dan Skelton very kindly sent through a voice clip of some of his thoughts, and he gave a really positive mention to his 4-year-old filly in here, Maytas Sonchur. He said he doesn't think a 4-year-old filly has ever won the race, which is absolutely true. But she goes apparently, and again, third-party information, whether you trust that or not, apparently she goes very, very well, and he's really, really looking forward to seeing what she can do, getting at least a stone off all of these bumper horses. So there's a bit of information for you. What you do with that is up to you.
Absolutely. I mean, my recommendation off that information is she's 14-1. Non-runner money back at this stage. She's obviously going to be declared anyway, but 14's got to be worth a free £5 bet or a couple of quid. Obviously, again, gamble responsibly, do your old means. But yeah, I like that, Will. Thanks for that bit of information. It's one of those, isn't it? Especially when you see some of the flyers or the ones that win at prices that might be like, well, how was that on your radar, or how could you find those bits? There's always a reason behind them. And with the concessions that are in here, I know the 4-year-old bit in there as well, but like when you're getting stacks and stacks and stacks of weight, it's got to make a massive difference. I know they're half-ton animals, and in the grand scheme we talk about handicaps, we might be what's a couple of pounds in there, but it's big chunks that horses like she's getting in a contest like this, and it is a bumper. It's a slightly different thing, and they're sort of new to racing, aren't they? So if some of them are more forward and they get in the weight, they wouldn't need it further down the line. So thank you for that, Will. Should we do? I mean, we'll leave the best bets for Wednesday because people can just check out the Which Bookie column to find our best stuff in there. If you're happy with that, Will.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't got final declarations yet, so it'll probably be Wendigo. I'll say that now.
I mean, mine will be Ballyfad, Elete Tomps, Wendigo. If I had to stack those three in order as well, it'd be Elete Tomps, Ballyadam. Sorry, Bally Adam. He could go again. He is in the Coral Cup again. He's 33s. Yeah, Ballyfad and then Wendigo. So, yeah, fingers crossed for a little bit. So, right, so Sam Fellows has just said, who did they mention then at 14-1? So it's in the bumper. Will would know the pronunciation better than me, but it's the Dan Skelton filly, number 32, I think she is. Will, what's the name?
Natas Sonchur. I just said I did a preview night. Dan Skelton was pretty keen on her chances.
Lovely. Quick question from Ollie McCormack as well. We'll get that while it's up, Will. Boyle Sports are doing an offer for money back from free bets if your horse loses the first race of odds between 3-1 and 13-3. Might be 13-2 or it might be some other bit. Who would you recommend out of Mighty Park and Talk the Talk? Where would your money go with those two, Will?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd say
it's money back.
Yeah, money. I'd probably say Talk the Talk because we know that this horse is very, very competitive. Well, has won a Grade 1. So we know he's up to that level. And actually what he did at the DRF in terms of quickening up off a slow pace on soft ground, I think he's actually going to be even better on better ground off a strong tempo. So we already know that he's up to that level and there could be more to come. Obviously, Mighty Park could be an absolute monster. We don't know. But at least we talk the talk. He's at a level that the others are going to have to improve quite significantly past him. So I'd probably go that way.
Fair. I mean, I probably should keep my trap shot, Ollie, because I would have gone the other way. I'd say because Marty Pike's a flyer and we've got no idea, but he could be good.
Well, that's the beauty of the Supreme this year. I think it's a really, really open race. There are so many angles you could come at it for.
Absolutely. I feel like Mighty Park on a concept. Like if someone said you've never got to do anything, have you? But I'd probably. I don't fancy Talk the Talk, to be fair, but I feel I would rather risk my own money on Talk the Talk because we've got the evidence behind him. Whereas if you get the opportunity to get a bit of a freebie, I feel like Mighty Park's one of those. Like he could be really good, couldn't he? Or he could just be really good, but not just yet. And I feel like I wouldn't want to actually risk as much on him if I had to. So proper quandary, Ollie, and I've messed it up there. I should have just let Will say that. So make your own mind up. But Talk the Talk probably is the right one, isn't he? And like I said, I've not got cover on him, but it's a hard race. Good question, to be fair. Right, you continue getting the questions in if you want to get them. You can see how much pressure you put me under there. The Thursday, we'll kick off with the Mares Novice Hurdle. We'll get through these not necessarily as quick as we can, but as quick as we can because it's Thursday and it's competitive enough, but there's some fairly obvious races. Bambino Fever's extra short now, isn't she? She's odds on. I guess there was a little bit of talk again that Old School Outlaw might not be coming, but she was weak and now she's come back in. We talked about this race before that you fancy one at a big price, and I liked La Conquière for Jamie Snowden at a big price as well. I'd still sit in the same camp, to be fair. Like, fully respect Bambino Fever, Old School Outlaw, more so Bambino Fever. But now that one's 4-5 and one's 4-1, that value loser type mentality starts to come in to think, well, Old School Outlaw's probably a fair price as an each way bet rather than backing Bambino Fever to win. So I'd just stay away from the two of them, although I think Bambino Fever is the one to beat. I still just think the Conquière 14s is massive. And I think when they get final declarations and there'll be some markets about Bambino Fever, I'm definitely going to have a bit on her. So I'm keen on her because of the price she is, and I think she's got a bit of a chance. Yourself, will it still be I can't remember the name of the big price one you had. Was it the Thurgle horse?
White Noise for Kim Bailey.
Kim Bailey, that's it.
Yeah, so I have backed her, very small stakes each way, 33-1 and 40-1, and recommended that as well. But I'm hoping that she doesn't meet with any kind of support really, because I think she'll be a massive player in those markets without Bambino Fever. And a lot of firms will do markets now without the top two in the market as well, Bambino Fever and Old School Outlaw. I think Bambino Fever is going to be mightily tough to beat. Let's put it that way. So not willing to take her on to any particular degree. So the main bet will probably be White Noise each way in a market without Bambino Fever, and possibly a small saver in the market without both of the top two.
Yep, fair enough. And I think she is one of those, isn't she? It's hard with the, definitely don't want to call them mug bets, but that's what we all know them as, don't we? When you see the shorties that are sat there, it's really hard to know how many of the shorties are the ones, like, they're not all going to win, so it's going to get beat. Even if you've got two even money pokes, the law of averages would say that one of them is going to get turned over. It's interesting to look at some of those ones about how short they are, whether to stick them in multiples or not. She feels to me like the one just maybe almost just to leave alone. Like if you've got her at a bit of prices, do it. When she's 4 to 5, it feels like she should just go and win, shouldn't she? But there's been a few strange results in the Mares Novice Hurdle recently, and it's just one of those that I'd always be a little bit lukewarm of getting too excited about personally. But maybe that's reflective in my like for Le Conquier this season, but I don't think it is. But we are where we are. Right, the Jack Richards Novices Chase, Will, the second race. Like I say, we don't know what's happening with Cocktail Divin yet, but I mean, we'd like to see him in the Brown Advisory. Meet by the Sea's been the talking horse for a little while now, been tipped up on a few previews. I say an obvious short, and I think he was. He also ran in that. He ran in the Denman Chase, didn't he? I think to get some just like bit of, like a run to qualify for this race and just to sit out the back all the games. But he ran at Newbury, didn't he? But he's in this race now and been supported, and understandably so. We've also got Regent Stroll that's been towards the head of the market the whole entire time. Slade Still that I mentioned before that's nibbled in the market. I guess maybe even more so the fact that Cocktail Devon might not come here. Any strong opinion this race? Because I find this incredibly hard to have a strong opinion in. For all that I have got a small opinion, I thought Slade Still is better than his chase mark. Just waiting for him to show it, I guess.
It possibly, yeah. I wouldn't think he's the most natural over fences, Slade Still. That's the only worry with him. Whereas I think the two kind of potential graded horses in a handicap, if you will, Cocktail Divin and Regent Stroll, they've looked really good jumpers, haven't they? I know Regent Stroll is a little bit of a lovable rogue, but I think he's gradually calming down, isn't he? And Paul Nicholls has never, ever hid away from the fact that he thinks he's a real top-notch animal in the making. So you can see him being right in there amongst it. But I think if he went here, the horse I'd have as outright favourite was Cocktail Divin for obvious reasons. If I fancy him for the Brown Advisory, I've got to fancy him in a handicap here against inferior animals at a trip that might be slightly more his optimum. Don't know that yet, but I could certainly see that angle. I like Meet Me by the Sea. He's a progressive handicapper. Is he going to be quite as good as one of those two? That would be my worry with him. So if you were looking at the bigger prices right now, and you'll probably get bigger prices on the day with extra places actually, Jordan's Cross and Stencil would be two to have on your radar as well. Jordan's Cross won the Novices Handicap Chase on Trials Day. Always a good race, always a good pointer to various future events. And he did it off a slow tempo, picking up from the rear, which I thought was notable. And Stencil is an interesting horse because he bombed out in the Fred Winter last year. And he's completely flat bred. I mean, he's bred to be, I think, a miler, if not even like more of a sprinter, bizarrely. But he's actually got better over fences, and he's settled a little bit better, and he's jumped a bit better over 2 miles. And last time at Chepstow, in a very small field, he suggested that he was worth having a go over further. Whether that comes in a Cheltenham Festival handicap or not, I don't know. It might be a bit too deep at this stage. But he's getting he's getting the hang of it. Stencil. So, keep half an eye on him.
Yeah, like that. Right, Jack Richards is covered, Will. Mares Hurdle should be easy. I mean, it probably would have been longer to talk about if Lossiemouth was here because we might have had to make an argument that Lossiemouth versus Woodhoo. But surely this is even easier now because Woodhoo could have given Lossiemouth a challenge, but I still think Lossiemouth would have beaten her. For me, nothing can beat Woodhoo in here other than herself, and I don't see that happening. 8 to 11 about her now, Lossiemouth out. Again, when we talk about like the comparison to Bambino Fever at 4 to 5 is for me a bit more of an unknown quantity. I think Woodhoo 8 to 11, again, gamble responsibly and stuff. Like I think that she looks like a good bet. Whether I'd get stuck into her or not, I don't know. But I don't see anything beating Woodhoo in this race personally. How about yourself? Because when she is as short as she is, there must be some value somewhere.
Yeah, I wouldn't be rushing to take her on either. She's a horse that I've never really properly warmed to, I must admit. But that's because she never does anything in a a real flashy way, which I'm kicking myself for not cottoning onto that earlier, because they should be the types of horses that you absolutely love, because they have better longevity. They're able to hold their form longer. They're able to improve, and she just only ever does enough, doesn't she?
Yep.
She comes off the bridle earlier than you'd ideally like to see sometimes, having had if you've had a bet on her. But yeah, she just is no stronger than that kind of the first half of the final furlong of each race, and then she'll just idle late on. That's what she does. So I think she'll probably win. Yeah. In terms of a market without one that I was having a bit of a look at was Take No Chances, who was on a real upward curve last year. Not been quite the same trend of progression this year, but she might well have been saved for a spring campaign. So she could be an interesting option. Probably she'll be around about the 9-2, 4-1 mark in a market without. That might be an interesting option, but we'll see when we get the decks.
Yeah, fair enough. The only one I'd make a case for outside of Woodhoo, and it would definitely be in the market without Woodhoo, is I do like Jatara. She's a bit of a fruitcake, isn't she? And she probably does need further. But I remember when she got beat by Hidden Valley Lake, I think it was at Aintree, when that was fast ground. She ran third. I think it was a pretty good performance from my perspective. She's 25-1 in the normal market now. I think she'd definitely be double figures in the without Woodhoo market. At that sort of price, she'd probably still be about 12s or 14s for first three, because they sometimes price up a bit funny, don't they? So I'm keen to see final decks for the Thursday races on the Tuesday, even though I'll be there at Cheltenham, to see if I can get a bit of air in a without market, because I think she'd be a stonking bet. If you get 4 places for Jatara in a field like this, it would be ridiculous. So I'd be looking at that one, but I can see that she wouldn't win. I mean, she possibly could, but Woodhoo would look like a bit of a banker, wouldn't she? Probably a fair price in my opinion, but wouldn't want to be getting steaming into anything that short of the Cheltenham Festival. You'd rather be on earlier, as I said, but then you couldn't get on her earlier because Lossiemouth should have come here, and I'll never shut up about it, Will. Right, the Stayers Hurdle should be the championship race, but they've moved it to 3:20. I'll get that in nice and early. Good race, though. We've got Cabral de Matan, who is coming here. Dan Skelton before was talking about he didn't want to ruin this horse over a testing ground over this trip. Now it's not going to be testing ground over this trip, although there's a bit of rain about Thursday night into Friday that could move forward. He's now a 5-1 poke for this race. Tiapu's been weak, Will. He's 9-4 top price. Honesty Policy's a general 9-2 poke. Bob Ollinger's general 6-1 shot. Marchantu's 8-1, 12-1 and bigger the rest. And that's Ballyburn bigger the rest. And Impostoir as well sat there. Both of those confirmed for the race. Both of them with this ground sitting the way that it is probably going to help them. Yeah. Real good competitive looking Stayers Hurdle. Have you got any more conviction? Because neither of us knew who was going to win this last time.
No, I don't. And the ground's just made it a little bit more... muddied the waters, as you say. It's been tricky to try and figure out exactly how it's going to be run. First and foremost, how it's going to pan out, and the ground being on the livelier side, if indeed it is on the new course on that first day on the Thursday, that will help Cabral de Matan. It will help Bob Ollinger. It will help Marchantu. It'll help Impostoir, and it'll probably help Honesty Policy as well. The one horse it possibly won't completely convenience is the favourite, Tiapu, isn't it? Who is fine on a sound surface, but you always get the impression he's a bit better when he gets his toe in. So, it could be that we get a really interesting market as we get into this race nearer the time. At this stage, though, bit of a quandary.
It really is. It's such a good race, though, because this is what Cheltenham should be about.
Yeah.
That you could sit here as us as class ourselves as professionals, like we've spent enough time looking at racing, we should know more than the average Joe talk about this. But with respect to everyone that watches this, you guys know loads about horse racing too. But you could look at the loads in this market, especially up to Impostoir exclusively. Yeah. And if someone made a case for me, you'd be like, yeah, he's got a chance. Like, you couldn't poo-poo any of the horses, really. And there's nothing really about the prices that you could say, well, they're actually too short or they're way too big. Like, it's a good-looking market. Makes me even more annoyed that they've taken it away from the championship slot, because the Ryanair now, Will, for all that it's going to be a lovely sight to see Factor File, we've got Factor File at 4-6 in the Ryanair chase. And it's just the rest, isn't it? But I suppose the good grounds coming up would mean that Banbridge would be your typical horse that everyone would talk about on this sort of surface. Is a very good horse and probably is maybe the one to be the bet in the race, because for all that Hartwood's a nice horse, he's probably not grade 1, is he? Whereas Banbridge, for all that he's a 10-year-old, he's been running to a decent standard, hasn't he? He was a really good no second in that King George when maybe not expected to repeat that sort of performance. But that shows what he can do on this fast ground, doesn't it? And I mean, if Factor File's not at his absolute best, surely the only horse that could beat him would be Banbridge.
Possibly. I can see Hartwood getting a lot closer. I really can. I think they last year he was ridden to pick up the pieces, which he did. But I think with the confidence of what he did that day and the confidence of what he's since gone on to do at Tremor, when he saw out the nearly 3 miles there on New Year's Day against some decent horses really well. I think they'll be good and positive on him as well and put it up to Factor File. Now, will that mean that Factor File isn't able to get into the same kind of rhythm that he is so good when he's able to do? Because he can throw in the odd below par run, but if he runs like he did in the Irish Gold Cup, then they'll all be playing for second place definitely. And if Hartwood does put it up to Factor File, does that mean that he might be vulnerable late on, having gone too fast a bit too early? That's in the back of my mind in terms of whether I should be backing him in a market without, because you almost might be that in trying to win the race, you actually lose second spot to something that just runs on past you. So yeah, tricky market again from that perspective. One horse that I still think is, at some stage is going to come right. I don't know when it is or why or where it'll be, but Croke Park, I think he looked a really good novice last year. It looked as if he was going places, but I'm not quite sure what's going on with him. He's got a Grand National entry, but he won't stay the trip there. But he'll probably run in it because he's a Jigginstown owned horse, and they do seem to run plenty in that who will never stay. So yeah, if he could run into the minor places if he ran here, that might possibly be a potential angle, but that's no more than it is.
No, 100 to 1 though, top price, but that is only 3 spots. Yeah. So it's a hard race, isn't it? I think Factor File, would be the obvious one, should go and win this one. I'd probably put him in maybe similar to the Madsborough camp, although Factor File I'd trust more than Madsborough with his jumping and bits in there as well. But I genuinely feel like now that we've got closer to it, we talked about it in the preview, I thought it was a race not to have a bet in. I think Banbridge, as much as I've missed a bit of the price about him, I think he would be a cracking bet in this. And he'd be a cracking bet for me in the without Factor File market, because I don't know exactly where he'd sit, but if he's 5 to 1 and Hartwood's 5 to 1, it might be 5 to 2, the pair of those in the without market, or maybe 2 to 1, 9 to 4. And I think, like you say, Hartwood, they said they're going to ride him more aggressive this year. They're going to have a go for it, basically. And if that pays out dividends, then fair play, he goes and wins it. But I don't know if he's got it in him, and I think that's going to hinder his chances. And if his heart starts to get broken by Factor File going past him, or even Banbridge lobbing alongside him, and Banbridge is so good on this ground at Cheltenham. I know it's a long time since he won his Martin Pipe, but when he came over for that novices chase in the November meeting as a novice, he dotted up over 2 miles. So it might not be all the way soft enough for him to go and do well. But I think that run in the King George was really good as far as I'm concerned. And he's definitely the one outside of Factor File that he's the only one I think can give him a bit of a race for it. So I'm a bit more excited about the Ryanair, but I'd expect Factor File to win, Banbridge to come second maybe. I wouldn't want to. I don't think I'd want to back Factor File, or definitely wouldn't at the price it is. And I wouldn't really want to stick him in too many multiples. I'd probably rather just have a little bit of a go on Banbridge if the ground stays as it is. Right, Will, the Potemps should be easy to solve, but Supremely West, you were fairly sweet when we spoke about it last time. I'm guessing that enthusiasm can't have wavered by now.
No, I mean, he's been nibbled away at in the market, which was to be expected. Dan Skelton, when he aims a handicapper at the Cheltenham Festival, we've seen it with over the years with various different horses. But even this year, the likes of, Madara's pretty short. He's got one or two others in various other races. Sorry, they don't spring to mind, but there are plenty. And Supremely West, from a long way out, just had the look of a horse that was going to be aimed at this particular race. So, yeah, he's probably the rightful favourite. He's just got to go and do the business now. In terms of those at bigger prices, the other one that I think will be fresh and well and will run a career best is Electric Mason. For Chris Gordon, really likeable horse, won the valuable race at Haydock, having just been touched off in the qualifier that Supremely West finished 4th in early season. I think he's probably, given the time off, he's a big frame of a horse. I can see him having developed and strengthened and got better for the time off. So he might well be a live proposition, definitely. Could be an additional angle into the race if you're already on Supremely West.
I like that. Yeah, and it's like a big field, this one. Some of the handicaps have contracted massively. This is still 24 in the end of this one. So lots of horses in there. Extended places will obviously come out when we get the final decks. It's going to be an interesting one. I mentioned Bold Endeavour when we did the preview. He's a bit older than you would like as the typical horse. He's a 10-year-old now, but he's been nibbled a bit. He's general 14s, top price 16s. He's probably there to be shot at some point in here. But I think what we spoke about before still stands the same in the Potemps as far as I'm concerned, Will. And fingers crossed, back in Supremely West, and then maybe having a couple of darts at cover at some ones at bigger prices means we will give you the winner of that race. But as always, check the column on the Witchbookie website to find out what our final thoughts are. Right, Will, the final race on Thursday, the Kim Muir taken a bit of a change with different types of horses, but the one we talked about in the preview was Jericho de Repenay, the decoy for Waterford Whispers. And
Yes.
Waterford Whispers is now a hell of a lot shorter than he was in the preview. Although I don't think either of us actually were brave enough to say, well, should we back Waterford Whispers for the Gimmuel? Because probably looked like the least likely of the races that he might come in here. So on that, did you manage to get a little bit on Waterford Whispers? And also, now that he's 9-2, would it be of any interest to you?
No, not well. Yes, he was the decoy, Jericho de Repenay. In your answer to that question, a lot of media focus was on him, and I'm sure various people that would have wanted to back other horses in the race would have been eyeing up the opportunity to do so. And the one in the same ownership, of course, that has been supported, or at least the price has been contracted, is Waterford Whispers. But I don't know. I wouldn't be cast iron guaranteed that he'll stay. That's my worry with him. In the Martin Pipe conditional jockeys race last year, he was fiercely keen, and he still ran a cracker of a race. So the ability's there. I don't know. I mean, he looks like he's settled over fences quite well. They've run him over shorter, and he's not really been in the races from an early stage. So yeah, he's probably much better than his handicap mark. He's probably verging on a graded type of horse. But yeah, will he stay? He might not need to stay. He might just be that much better. But I wouldn't have him at the prices, definitely. I'd have backed him if he turned up in the plate or the novices handicap chase over 2.5. I'd have been very keen on him in them. But yeah, not over 3 mile 2 on the new course at Cheltenham. The one that I've backed and I'm still pretty keen on is We've All Been Caught for Eric McNamara. Horse who was 4th in the Kinmure last year. Still think he's a good price at 20-1. Don't know who's going to ride him. That's obviously a bit of a sticking point in amateur riders' races. You want to know that you've got an experienced amateur on your side, but I can't for the life of me think that Eric McNamara wouldn't have thought of that and booked someone who's going to at least help and not hinder. So yeah, We've All Been Caught, I think, has been kept for the race again fresh. He finished second in I think it was the Munster National at Limerick, and yeah, he'll probably run his race again, and that might well be good enough to put him somewhere near or thereabouts. Near or nearabouts. I'm making up phrases as we go along.
I like it. No, he's got a good chance. He's a horse that I've quite liked as well. In the case you made in the video when we were looking at the shorts as well that we put out on the channel, like it's solid enough, isn't it? Interesting thing with Waterford Whispers, I'll say this so we can crack on with the Friday stuff. With the JP plot jobs, I remember one for the road, Tom went to Perth on good ground and they put cheap pieces on. I've always looked at some of these handicap plots. If they bang a bit of cheap pieces on, I feel like that's the day that they want to go in. My biggest concern with Waterford Whispers, I mean, semi the trip, but I don't think he would like the ground if it's quick either. So that makes me concerned. I mean, he could be declared, but then he could end up being a non-runner. And it's going to take space for other horses. I mentioned when we talked about it before, Jerive de l'Est will be interesting. Whether he goes here or it's the Midland National on Saturday, if he doesn't get in, whichever one of those two he goes in, he will be carrying my cash because things just haven't stuck for him in the cross-country sphere. But I think it's because that level of distance was just a bit too far for him against horses like a Favre de Champdou, that's obviously a very good horse. So I think Jerive de l'Est is very interesting. Probably the type of horse for me, while he's a 9-1 non-runner money back in this, I'd suggest just getting into him now, because if he gets in and Waterford Whispers comes out and you wait for the prices, I think he might be the type of horse that goes off at 3-1. So I've got a bit on. I'd suggest people that would want to listen to my advice, maybe do a little bit of the same, because he's getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. Right, Will? Conscious of our time and for us, ourselves, and for the viewers, but you happy to crack on with a quick skim through for Friday?
Absolutely, yeah.
Perfect. Right, the Triumph Hurdle, we talked when we did the preview stuff at that time. Narciso has just been taken out, so we were aware of that, although when we talked about it in our Little Anti-Post video just before that, he was still in the race. But regardless of whether he was running or not, you were, and I imagine you were still very sweet on Manella Study for this race, right, Will?
Yeah, I don't see any reason not to be. Ground should be fine for him. I mean, he's an ex-flat horse. I think all ground probably comes alike to him. The performance he put up by winning the trial here back on, it was New Year's Day, wasn't it? I was going to say, it was in December. It was the December meeting trial, wasn't it? Where he beat Winston Jr. Yeah, he was just so good. Handled the track really well, jumped well, travelled nicely. There was just never a moment's worry, was there? He's obviously taken on better rivals today, but for me, if you're looking at the market and what the others have done, Selma de Veri is perhaps the one that you could maybe just discount from this statement, but he really should be on what he's done. He should be favourite. and I've said this before, it's going to sound like a cliche again. Apologies for being boring, but if he was trained by Willie Mullins or Nicky Henderson, he would be favourite, wouldn't he?
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah, each way play, Manella study. I think no reason not to. I mean, the other one thing in the back of my mind I was thinking about was he's had 3 months off the track, and he could have gone to Musselburgh to run in the trial there. But Adam Nichol has decided to keep him fresh. And actually, Musselburgh, would that be the right thing to do, to run him in the trial there, to then go back to Cheltenham again? Two completely different tracks. Having got used to the new course at Cheltenham, to then get him on his head right-handed around a really, really tight track over a furlong and a bit shorter. Not sure that would have been the best thing to do, actually. So I'm probably on one hand thinking, well, actually, it was better he didn't run him. So he'll have had racecourse gallops and stuff. He'll have probably galloped up Bamborough Beach 3 or 4 times, and that'll be enough.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I'm keen about him. There's a couple of horses that could frank his form as well, aren't they, coming into the trial? I agree with you. Like, he looks, the prices especially. Again, frustratingly, Max Fielder 22, there's plenty of horses that will probably run in here because the Fred Winter was so dwindled as well. But they've got to be offering 4 or 5 places nearer the time. And I wonder at final decks, because most of the front are going to stand their ground. I think Manella Study, they've kept his price for this long. I reckon at final decks they'll do the same, but we'll get a couple of extra places. So I've not joined the Manella Study bandwagon just yet, Will, but definitely your confidence has pushed over to me. So I'm going to get him in the book. I still like Selma de Very, but I do think she's too short. So we'll have to see how the market settles to that, especially, I suppose, with jockey bookings. But you'd imagine that Paul Townend will be on Selma de Very. Mon Crusade is the one that Willie Mullins mentioned, didn't he, at a big price that's been supported. So that would be an interesting horse. But being only a bumper winner could be the type of horse like an Elete Thompson that gets beat as a juvenile and then they say it's their supreme horse for next year. So it's an interesting market, but I think not much has changed for either of us by the sounds of things in there.
No.
I say painfully, but crazily, nothing's changed in Manella Study's price either. Like, I can't believe that he hasn't contracted since we've done the preview. People obviously don't listen to us well, but like I say, final decks, everyone's waiting for that, aren't they? Final decks, couple of extra places, and then it'll be steamrolled. It'll go off shorter, I'm sure. Right, the county hurdle, Will. Lots has changed in this. There's loads of basically really short-priced horses in here. Mercia, Charisma, Carbo. Carbo's been the one that was fancied a bit by a few smart judges, I think, to be fair. Then it seems to have been more popular recently. That one's price has contracted quite a bit. Mondo Man sat there now. Sinatra, one you talked about, I made a real good case for, being well handicapped. He's only sat around about 12 to 1 now as a top price. Good race, the county. One that I never really have a massively strong opinion in. I would have loved to have seen Anza down here. I talked about him, we did our preview, and he's not. So that scuppers the case that I could have really made for him. So as it stands for me, I find this a really hard market to look at and try and have any confidence that I think any of them are good value at this stage. And especially with the jockey bookings from Clasutton, like Paul Townend will be on the best of the Willie Mullins horses. So when you've got Mercia and Carbo, I probably wouldn't want to back Carbo if Paul Townend wasn't on. But if she's 8 to 1 and if he's 8 to 1 and Paul Townend does go on, then that will probably be a good price. So yeah, you can play it how you want. Some people have probably backed him and they're going to cash out. But is there a bet in the county at this stage, Will?
Yeah, I think Sinatra is probably it. Yeah, 12 to 1 each way. I think that's more than fair, really. I think I love what Dan Skelton's done with him this year in that he's recognised probably halfway through the season, which is a bit later for him than is sometimes the case, that this could be a really nicely handicapped horse, and a race like the county would really suit him. So what he's done is he's running him some novice hurdles where he's given him some good experience. He's put up some really, really fast times. And he's also run well at Newbury in a couple of good novice and maiden hurdles when he's been in amongst runners. He's tried to teach him Harry Skelton. He then ran in the Sydney Banks where he perhaps didn't stay against Active Innocence, who might well have a chance in a Turners anyway. And then obviously we're mindful of the fact that you need 5 runs now for all the Cheltenham Festival handicap hurdles. He needed to get that 5th run in him. So he went local, went to Warwick, got a lovely toe into the race from a nice horse of Ben Pauling's 4 Springs, who was very disappointing actually in the EBF final. Something must have been amiss because he was beaten at halfway, I think. So I wouldn't suggest that that's knocked the form by any stretch of the imagination, because I still retain the faith in that particular horse. But Sinatra just cantered through the race and put it to bed and won really nicely. So it had been no more than an exercise canter for him, really. And it got him the 5th run to get into the race. So I think he's got a good chance, really good chance for a trade. I mean, this race is either won by a future Grade 1 hurdler for Willie Mullins or a progressive handicapper for Dan Skelton. There's only one trainer who's won this race in the last 10 years, other than fitting into either of those two profiles. And and I'm going to go with the Dan Skelton one because I don't think Carbo or Mercier are potential Grade 1 animals personally.
I love that, Will. Yeah, I feel like it's like semi-bullish again for your confidence from that. I feel like my Wednesday excitement is your Friday excitement. So we've got a couple of days that could look quite good in there.
Yeah.
The Four Springs thing as well. I'll make a mention on that one too because I know you mentioned him for Saturday in that EBF final. I looked at some of the stuff with Ben Paulin's wind horses. And I wanted to make a bit of a case because the first time cheap pieces for Ben Paulin's a positive angle, but second time after a wind-up for horses that were beaten after their wind-up for Ben Paulin, I don't think he's ever had a winner. So it tends to be that if the wind-up doesn't work first time, then they've had a wind-up for a reason, and maybe it's an underlying issue that there could be something in there. But yeah, his race on Saturday, nothing to do with anything knocking the form for Sinatra, is it? Because he was well beaten outside. And the fact that he's had that wind surgery as well, I know that he had that before he ran against Sinatra, but it would suggest that there could have been something about him. Maybe they tried the wind surgery and it wasn't his wind; it was maybe something physical with him. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about that stuff for all that people might start saying it. But
no,
it's not that I would say that because I backed him, but I probably would say that because I backed him. You got to make yourself feel good, haven't you?
There's like the mare's chase form before that. You don't.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, does it? Absolutely. Right, the mare's chase, Will. I was bullish about Dino Blue. I'll be exactly the same now. Like 6-4 about her, I think is a really good bet. Yeah. I know I do concede she is a mare that's made mistakes and she probably will make mistakes again, but still a mare that hasn't fallen. I need to stop saying that because I'm going to go. If she does go down, it's my fault, guys. But she's just so much better than these, and she warrants being a lot shorter than 6-4 in my opinion. Yeah. I respect Panic Attack for the fact she's been progressive and she's the one in there. But if you really look at this race and think that she's 4-1 second favourite and the one that people are latching onto as maybe the each way alternative or the one to try and take her on with, I think that just confirms how far clear Dino Blue is. So I'd be interested for people that wanted to bet without Dino Blue in this race because I reckon there could be some good bets to be had at bigger prices because I'm not so keen on Spindleberry, but yeah, Dino Blue for me, she's the right type of horse. I fancied her in the race last year. She was the 3-pointer, I think. If she stays 6-4, she probably might even be bigger than a 3-pointer come the Friday. I think she's a real good thing. But again, gamble responsibly. It wouldn't be a stupid size stake type stuff. It would be within the point scheme. But I can't have her beat, Will. Do you think you can tell me that she could get beat?
I think the only one that could potentially beat her is Spindleberry. I think on ability and what she's shown before her Irish Gold Cup run, which you could probably forgive, couldn't you? Mm-hmm. She's the one that I think of the field at this trip on the likely ground. Although that said, there is a bit of rain forecast Thursday night, so it might just soften things slightly. But, I don't think it'll be an absolute deluge, but weather forecasts can change, of course. Spindleberry would be the one that I think has the ability to put it up to Dino Blue. Market vibes will tell us all you need to know about that, I think. Because if Spindleberry's strong, then she'll be over whatever it was that hindered her in the Irish Gold Cup, or maybe that was just too deep, too far, too early. I don't know. And this is going to be much calmer waters for her. So if she's strong, I'd be wary of her. If she's not, it's probably clear for Dino Blue, I think.
Yep, she's been weak in the market as well. And again, this isn't even the most outlandish thing to say out loud, but obviously Mark Walsh will be on Dino Blue. I say it's only a grade 2. I know it's still a Cheltenham Festival winner, but Paul Townend doesn't necessarily have to ride in every single race. I feel like there's a small chance that he might not even be on Spindleberry because if he thinks that Dino Blue is going to win the race. And I'm not saying that would be the case, but that is something that could also happen in the time between now and then. She's a terrible price at the price she is, bottom price 3-1 as far as I'm concerned. But she would obviously reach a point, wouldn't she, where if she's 5 or 6-1, she could be third and it would potentially be a good price about her. So we'll have to see how she settles.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And that's the thing. If Danny Mullins is on top of her and even Paul Townend doesn't ride her, Dino Blue will go off the 1-2 that she should be, and we can oi from before the race even starts. But they've got to get round, Will, haven't they? Right, Will. The Albert Bartlett, love the race. I've been keen on Dr. Steinberg for a little while. Willie Mullins, when there was the talk that Mighty Part wasn't declared for the Turners and everyone was saying, wow, he's going to the Supreme, I just wanted to tweet and say, he's taken Steinberg out, he's going to the Bartlett. Let's get excited about that. But they've done that. They talked about Willie Mullins saying he could be a bit too keen. Paul said that he's going to try and get him sorted. The fact that they took that entry out early would suggest to me that Willie has no doubts anymore. Yeah. And I know he might say that he wants to leave everything to the last minute to make his decisions, but I'd see that as a big positive. I think he is just the best horse in the race. And we say in this race, it's not always the classiest horse that wins it, but we've seen some classy horses win this in more recent renewals. So it's not the attritional horse with loads of hurdle races that it sometimes was for a few years. mentioned in the video we did when we did the preview, Cryptic Jim was interesting. I think he's going to come here. 20 to 1 is, I think, an okay-ish price, but he's going to be playing for place money, I would think. And Mondui Boy was another one that I mentioned. I had 2 options, but I thought he was good. He's 25 to 1 as well. So I've got a little bit on both of those at bigger prices just as sort of cover for the race. But I really fancy Dr. Steinberg. Do you have a strong opinion in this race, Will, or anything against Dr. Steinberg?
No, I don't have a strong opinion. No, I'm going to go through the form of them a little bit more when we get the final decks, of course, because there'll be plenty. Actually over the next couple of days, they get declared elsewhere, and it'll get thinned out a little bit. But certainly, Mondui Boy is of interest. Stepping up to this trip, I think, is interesting. That tends to be the angle with horses that do well in the Albert Bartlett, is that they suddenly improve for the step up in trip. So I could see that with Mondui Boy definitely. I think Espresso Milan might well be a player.
Yeah,
stepping up to this trip as well from 2 3/4 miles, he could be interesting as well. I think the Devil has done not much wrong at all. I can see why he's priced up the way that he is as well. So yeah, probably not overly excited about the Albert Bartlett at this stage. Maybe that will change. We'll see.
Oh, I'm very excited, Will. And what I predict in my mind is going to happen as well is Cryptic Jim's going to go off from the front and give Dr. Steinberg the lead. And then I just pray that Paul Townend gives him the respect that he deserves. And Cryptic Jim does come back to him, because we saw it with when Kilbrick and Storm won and Santini was out the back with Nico de Boinville. Just should have put him in the race and he probably would have picked him up. But on the day, he got beaten by another horse. I think that's going to happen. Cryptic Jim's going to give him the lead. Hopefully, Dr. Steinberg picks him up. But I mean, I've got a bit of cover. But if there's going to be the flyer, Mondui Boy nabs it from the pair of them, that could be it. Easy in the Albert Bartlett. There's the TriCast for you. Or at least a couple at big prices to put in your place pot, just in case it's a sort of a coupon buster. Right, Will, the Gold Cup looks brilliant now. We've got Gaelic Warrior, who is coming here. No Factor File obviously changes it, I guess, significantly from what we assumed it would have been before, but also from a class perspective. But it's a real good-looking race. Gaelic Warrior's top price 4 to 1, Jukebox Man's 4 to 1, Django Bay's 9 to 2. I know the way you're thinking's coming in for loads of money now, 15 to 2 top price. But it's Haiti Couleurs next in the betting 8 to 1 top price, General 6 to 1. You were sweet on this horse each way. Yeah. With the defections and the way the race is panning out, you must be a little bit sweeter on Haiti Couleurs now.
Yeah, I am. Well, particularly with Factor File out, because that's a prominent racer that's not going to be in the race. There are 1 or 2 others that will push forward, definitely. But I couldn't see that there were too many that were going to want to. I mean, the Jukebox Man likes to be prominent, but he's not an out-and-out front runner like Haiti Couleur. I mean, and again, Haiti Couleur is not an out-and-out front runner. He just seems to find himself there because he loves to go that tempo and push it on. So, yeah, I'm really keen on him. I think this race will make him produce a career best performance, and I think he's already at a level just bubbling under that with what he's done in the Irish National and the Welsh National and the National Hunt Chase here. And he's your kind of native river of this year, isn't he? And that there might be a lot of people thinking, well, he's not that good, is he? Surely, but when you get in these deeper races, those types of horses, they're only ever going to show themselves to be as good, as slightly better than the horses that are filling the places. Yeah. So this is his chance to prove that he's as good as I think he potentially could be. He's probably at a price now where you wouldn't want him to get too much shorter for an each-way play. I'll admit that now, but as long as he stays in and around that particular ballpark that he's at now, the sort of 15 to 2, 8 to 1 mark, then happy to play away at that price each way without a shadow of a doubt. Of those at shorter that I'd be most wary about, it would be Django Bay, because I just think that he is the one who, the way the Boxing Day King George panned out, just made me think that perhaps Django Bay is the one that is going to improve the most for 3 1/4 miles and back to Cheltenham left-handed. I think the Jukebox Man, nothing against him and Gaelic Warrior, they might stay. But I think I could say with more assurity that Django Bay is more likely to stay than those 2 are.
It's such a good race, isn't it? And I think as well, the field's going to hold up that we're going to get 4 places. So we'll better get a good height each way bet, I think, in there, because I can't have him out before in the slightest. His tenacity and the way he sticks his head down, the more I watch replays of the Jukebox Man, I think to myself, I mean, he's got a pair of nuts because he sticks his neck down, doesn't he? He's never let Ben Jones down over fences. Yeah. And they're the types of horses you can see him going at it. And for all that Gaelic Warrior sometimes can be dismissed as a bit of a quirky horse, I think he tries his hardest out as well. Yeah. Django Bay looked like that in the King George as well. I don't think we've got any soft horses of those prominent ones in here. So it's going to be such a good race because the Native River one was really good. Mike Bite's obviously not completely and utterly soft, but he's a bit of a quirky one, isn't he? But when it was that against Native River, like Native River just knuckled down and got it done, didn't he?
Yeah.
It's going to be that with like the Jukebox Man, Haiti Couleurs. I can see them just knuckling down, and it's just going to be such a good Gold Cup. I'm really excited, and I like your confidence on Haiti Couleurs. I've tipped up Gaelic Warrior on the anti-post series we did at, I want to say 16s or 12s maybe. So got a little bit lucky with the way that it's defected now with Factifal not coming here, and because Gaelic Warrior could have gone to the Ryanair. So he's a live chance in there. Probably short enough at 3-1, right? And especially with Gallop and the Champ coming out, I know Paul Townend been on him will be a positive, but he's the worst price of the three at the front of the market, I think. But then there's only so much bigger any of them could be. So really, really good looking race. Excited, but I'm sure there'll be 4 places up for grabs on the day. So probably still sit tight. Right, Will, the Hunter's Chase, we're almost there. Wonderwall is 7-2 favourite, but top price 5-1. It's on the lines, top price 6-1, general 5-1 shot. Cons Rock's been supported a bit. Panda Boy's been supported as well. Wrapped up in May. They're all the ones that are single figure prices. The only bet I'd possibly have in this is I'd have a good each way bet on It's on the Line, because he's going to come second probably, and he might win the race. He's starting to hit the age now, isn't he, where he should be able to go and win this one. He's got a chance to go and do it again next year, but I think he looks a solid one for the multiples. We talked about those each way bets you could put across the week, and if you've already had a couple of losers in an each way ACCA, you don't even need your last leg to win, do you? So I'm going to have a little bit on It's on the Line as an each way bet in there, but wouldn't be going crazy about him, and this wouldn't be a race I'd get too excited about. Have you got any more excited about it since our preview?
No, apologies. Move on.
Fine. Move on. The Lucky Laugh, the Getting Out Stakes. This has changed complexion quite significantly, Will. I was keen on Wendrock. We didn't know the weights. We talked about the fact that he was, I think, slightly harshly treated last year. He was 136. And I said to you, there's no way he gets any more than 136 this year. And they've given him exactly 136 again. So I think he's a better horse than 12 months ago. So doesn't bother me. But there's been some support for Kel Histoire. There's been some support for Rock Dino. And I'm less confident on Wendrock than I was before. But I mean, he's still probably going to be an each way bet at 16s. He can run into a place. But how do you feel about this race now? Because we like to find the winner of the Martin Pipe. Yeah. But can you do that this far out?
Well, 2 that I've backed, Air of Entitlement and Steed Bonnet are the 2. Yeah. Air of Entitlement, obviously second winner of the Mayor's Novices Hurdle last year on the new track over 2 miles, 1 furlong. Been long a supporter of her for the Mayor's Hurdle, but 2 runs this year have just, I mean, she's bombed out really. And presumably there were issues afoot. And as a result, she's still on a handicap mark that surely she's got to be a fair bit better than. I mean, the way she won the Mayor's Novices Hurdle last year, she looked like a real proper mare in the making. And on various time comparisons with that and other hurdle races on the day as well, she comes out very, very positively. So Air of Entitlement, I think, has got to be at least a saver for anyone that has a bet in the race. And Steed Bonnet is one of Gordon Elliott's battalions in the race. Don't know who is going to ride him as yet, but I think he's going to improve markedly for the step up in trip and also markedly for better ground. He's been campaigned basically over 2 miles on softer, heavy ground this year. And he's put up some really good performances, really good numbers as well on the clock. In some good races, actually. Novice and maiden hurdles, admittedly, but they featured good horses. And last time at Punchestown, it was basically a 5th run in a listed race behind a couple of nice horses just to get qualified to run at the festival. So I'm glad to see he's been confirmed in amongst the entries, and hopefully he's confirmed to run, because I think he's a big improver up to this trip.
I love that, Will. Right, we've managed to make it through to the end of it. Buzzing about that. Like we say, we've only got final declarations for the Tuesday, so some of these could be open to interpretation, but we've got a good handle on who's going where, Will. All our final selections will be available at the Whichbookie website. Loads of Wills are already on there. There's so many good bits of content on there. And it's nice to read everyone's thoughts. There's loads of other people that will share their opinions. So it's all about that. But as it stands, Will, I'm going to push you now just to see this video out. For the people that have stayed for this long on the live, thank you so much for that. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're liking the video. For the people that watched it on repeat and you stayed to this end, Brucey bonus for you too. Will, our best bets basically across the week, rather than it being like your naps or anything like that, if you were to think through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, some of those cracking each way bets like your Haiti Couleurs, like your Wendigos, can you think of those right now that you'd be saying to people, these are the few that I think you need to be getting on?
Right, I'll give you an each way lucky 15 then on the 4. I think are the best and most muggy each way bets over the course of the meeting. Let's go with Brighter Days Ahead in the Champion Hurdle. We'll go with Wendigo in the Brown Advisory. We'll go with Manila Study in the Triumph Hurdle and Haiti Couleur in the Gold Cup. They'll be my four most hopeful each way plays at the current prices.
Oh, I love that, Will. All right, I'm going to make myself do the same. I'm trying to think of it in daily order. I think I'd leave Tuesday alone for the purpose of it looks a bit trappy. Maybe, like I say, my views have been marred a little bit. The fact that we've got confirmations and bloody Lossy Mouse gone to the Champion Hurdle. For the Wednesday, though, I like a few. I would definitely say that I think Ballyfad is a real good each way bet. You've done Wendigo, so I'll leave that one, although I would agree. I would say Elite Tomps, I think, in the championship race is a good bet as well. Similar-ish, I guess, as Brighter Days Ahead. Fair price. I think that she can beat, or he can beat the ones that are in there. To try and squeeze some more, I'm trying to remember what I said on Thursday. I do think Le Conquier in the each way, each way without Bambino market's going to be a stonking each way bet as well. So we'll mention that for the purpose of now. And then Friday, It's on the Line would be a stonking each way bet as well. So there you go. That'd be a couple of each way lucky 15s you could put in there. Or if you want to have a pound each way acca, it's crazy how fast that can start rolling up, isn't it, Will? Especially when you get them 5-1 plus, because they're even money pokes, aren't they? 4 of those even money pokes were paid like 14, 15 to 1. And if you end up starting with £2, could be a £30 bet, could be a £60 bet back. Or if some of them are a little bit bigger, aren't they? You could soon put yourself into like triple figures. So you do well with the lucky 15s. Will you be doing them for every day of the festival as well, Will?
Yeah, we'll be. Yeah, every day on the morning. So all the day one selections are up there now, actually, on the website. Can't see them changing too much. We're pretty much set fair with the weather, and there's not too many other variables that I can see coming into play, really. So, but I'll obviously, for the remaining days, it'll either be late at night, the night before, or the morning where we get those selections focused, because we want to see what happens, obviously, the days before that, because they'll have a large bearing on what pans out in the days after.
Awesome. I love that. I'm really excited about Cheltenham. I'm really excited for all the content that we've been able to do this year already, Will. This is like a really exciting festival. We've got some really good opinions in there. I'll just say to you guys out there, I'm sure you already are, but make sure you're following Will and myself on X Twitter, same as the Which Bookie channel. And if you could do me a favour as well, when Will's putting up his lucky 15s, if in the comments you could also put your lucky 15s, if you could be bothered to do that, because I'll be excited to see how many we can agree on. Maybe there's ones that people want to have their opinions on to, perm up a couple of different selections in each of the races. But we like to know what you guys are thinking as well. So please do use the comments on YouTube and on our other socials, Twitter, etc. But thanks again, Will, for all your time, mate. Best of luck for next week. We've got lots in agreement as well, so extra luck for you this year. The ones where you don't agree with me, then not as much luck, please, this year, Will. But fingers crossed we can make a few quid.
Absolutely. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks so much for your support. And like I say, make sure you like the videos, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment below, and check everything out on Twitter over the festival period. Thank you again, guys, and see you soon.